Chapter 391. Impossible. He has a deep grudge with the Yi clan. He wouldn't help. What's his tone like? The old man asked Wu Du. He's quite easygoing with Yi Yin. It's obvious that this is the first time Yi Yin has met him. Wu Du replied, so that's how it is. Hearing Wu Du's explanation, the old man let out a long sigh. It was obvious that this person wasn't Yi Ming. Yi Ming's words had always been cold, especially to the Yi clan. It seemed that the expert who injured Wu Du was someone else. Pooh! Wu Du clutched his chest and spat out a mouthful of blood. Although he was lucky enough to escape when he fought with Yi Feng, his heart was still injured by Yi Feng's sword energy. The words he said before he left were just for show. Whoosh! With a thought, a long green vine wrapped around the old man's body loosened and shot towards Wu Du, who was kneeling on the ground like a snake. Pa pa pa! The long vine tapped Wu Du's chest 7 times, and green light gathered where it touched. BDZ, BDZ, B. The 7 green dots on Wu Du's chest released 7 bolts of lightning, which gathered at his heart and formed a 3-inch green ball of light. BZ. The ball of light spun and slowly entered Wu Du's heart, and the 7 dots on his chest disappeared. Whoosh! The flashing green vine quickly retracted and wrapped around the old man again. Thank you, master. Wu Du bowed his head and said, Get up. The old man closed his green eyes and said, If you can't kill him this time, wait for the next time. With your current cultivation, killing him is easy. No matter how powerful that expert is, he can't be by his side all the time. Master, I'm afraid I can't kill him. Wu Du stood up and whispered, What? You don't want revenge? The old man asked Wu Du. Of course I want revenge. Wu Du raised his head and said through gritted teeth, But what? The old man asked. He has the burning heavens diagram. Wu Du said hatefully, Burning heavens diagram? Hearing these words, the old man suddenly opened his eyes. Then Yi Yun has the burning heavens diagram? Wu Du furrowed his brows and nodded heavily. That old bastard Tian Kanzi actually gave him the burning sky diagram. Once the burning sky diagram was mentioned, the old man was unable to restrain his anger. If Tian Suzi had not used 30 years of his lifespan to activate the burning sky diagram, the position of Pear Blossom Palace's palace master would have been his. Master, even you weren't a match for the burning heavens diagram back then. Now that Yi Yun is carrying this diagram, I'm afraid I won't be able to take revenge, Wu Du said in annoyance. That burning the sky scroll will consume 10 years of the caster's life. Naturally, its power is unprecedented. Back then, that old bastard Tian Kanzi's witchcraft cultivation was not as good as mine, so he created this scroll on his own. On the day of the final battle, in order to break my ancient sorcery, this old bastard didn't hesitate to use 30 years of his life to cast 3 burning sky secret techniques in a row, severely injuring me, causing my cultivation base to be completely destroyed and all my meridians to be severed. If he hadn't aged by 30 years and exhausted all his strength, I would have died in his hands. Recalling the battle between him and Tian Kanzi in Miaojiang, the old man was very emotional. All these years, I have been absorbing the essence of heaven and earth here. Every time I sit here, I will be able to recover my meridians one day and master the supreme sorcery. I will then cripple that old bastard Tian Kanzi and let him have a taste of this dark days. Master, according to what you said, there's a way to break the burning sky scroll. After Wu Du heard the old man's words, his eyes lit up. As long as he could break Yi Yun's burning sky scroll, killing Yi Yun would be as easy as flipping his hand. All the sorcery in the world are mutually reinforcing and counteracting each other. There is no unbreakable technique, only those who are unwilling to put in the effort. The old man said to Wu Du, All these years, I have been studying the secret technique all the time, searching for a way to break the burning sky scroll and the green sorcerer scripture. God has eyes. I finally found a way to break it. A secret technique to break the burning sky scroll? Wu Du was shocked. What secret technique is it? Samadhi in fire, the old man said. Samadhi in fire. Wu Du was shocked. He had only heard of samadhi real fire, but he had never heard of samadhi fire. The reason why the burning sky scroll is so powerful is that it can gather a person's essence, chi, and spirit for 10 years to one point and ignite samadhi real fire to burn everything, the old man said slowly. Samadhi real fire is the fire of extreme yang. To break this technique, you have to do the opposite and use samadhi fire to deal with his samadhi real fire. Master, what is samadhi fire? Wudu asked. 3 talents, heaven, earth, and man, samadhi, essence, chi, and spirit. You have to know that man is the combination of yin and yang. If there is yang, there must be yin. If there is samadhi real fire, there will naturally be samadhi yin fire, the old man explained. Wudu was enlightened. Using yin fire to deal with yang fire, what a brilliant technique. As expected of the evil sorcerer Ka sang. If he could cultivate this samadhi yin fire, Yi Yun would definitely die. Master, how do you cultivate samadhi yin fire? Wudu asked. Chapter 392. Master, but what? Wudu quickly asked when he saw Ka sang hesitating. This samadhi yin fire diagram is the same as the burning sky diagram. One move will consume 10 years of your life, said the old man. Hearing this, Wudu fell silent. It was true that he wanted to kill Yi Yun, but he didn't want to perish together with him. No one could guarantee that they could kill Yi Yun in one move. After all, Yi Yun's burning sky diagram was no small matter. After one move, 10 years would be gone. What if one move of the samadhi yin fire diagram couldn't kill Yi Yun? Use a second move? A third move? How many decades did one have in their life? He wasn't afraid of death, but he didn't want to die. He still wanted to spend the rest of his life with his junior sister. Master, is there no other way? Wudu frowned and asked. There's no other way to break this burning sky diagram, said the old man. It seems that I can only fight with my life if I want to kill him, said Wudu softly. Ha ha! Wudu's words made the old man laugh. Wudu was confused and didn't understand. My silly disciple, there's only one way to break the burning sky diagram. However, there are thousands of ways to kill Yi Yun. The two aren't related, said the old man with a smile. Master, what do you mean? Wudu hurriedly asked. In his opinion, if he didn't break Yi Yun's burning sky diagram, he wouldn't be able to kill him. Since you're known as the Gu King, why don't you use witchcraft to deal with him? Asked the old man. Master, you don't know, said Wudu. Back then, junior sister Jinshan planted the Silkworm King Gu in Yi Yun. With this Gu King, all other Gu poisons won't work. The Silkworm King is in Jinshan's hands? The old man frowned. Wudu nodded. Since witchcraft can't deal with him, then force him to use the burning sky diagram, said the old man meaningfully as he looked at Wudu. Force him to use the burning sky diagram? This, Wudu didn't understand what the old man meant. The burning the heavens diagram will take away 10 years of his lifespan in one move. Yi Yun is now over 50 years old. How many more moves can he use? The old man laughed sinisterly. That year, that old guy Tian Kanzi used 3 moves in a row and was already exhausted. That Yi Yun has a mortal body. He can only use 2 moves in a row. As the saying goes, the first drum builds up the spirit, the second drum weakens the spirit, and the third drum exhausts the spirit. As long as you can avoid 2 of the burning the heavens diagram, victory will be in your grasp. At that time, that Yi Yun will be old and frail, and killing him will be as easy as flipping your hand. That's a good idea, but Master, Wudu frowned and asked, that burning the heavens diagram is extremely tyrannical. Avoiding it is as difficult as ascending to heaven. When he was still under Tian Kanzi's tutelage, he had heard Tian Kanzi talk about the power of this burning the heavens diagram. Without using the power of the soul, everything in the world could be burned down. If one used the 3 souls and 7 spirits, even a Daluo golden immortal would not be able to escape. Avoiding the flames of the burning heavens diagram was easy to say. Once the burning heavens diagram is used, the land within a radius of 30 miles will be scorched. The old man said solemnly, if you want to avoid the burning heavens diagram, You must either have a heaven-defying movement technique, or you must attack from 30 miles away and force him to use the burning heavens diagram. After Wu Du heard this, he fell into deep thought. His current movement technique was very fast, but it was not fast to the point where he could travel 30 miles in an instant. He had the ability to attack from 30 miles away. Not to mention 30 miles, even if he was 100 miles away. He could use witchcraft to take someone's life. However, Yi Yun had the Silkworm King Gu, and witchcraft was useless against him. Moreover, Yi Yun's 3 souls and 7 spirits were already tightly connected with the burning heavens diagram on his back. Witchcraft, such as cursing and capturing souls, would not be effective. How many years have you been following me? Just as Wu Du was deep in thought, the old man on the cloud bed suddenly asked Wu Du. Wu Du was stunned at first. Then he replied respectfully, 10 years, master. It has been 10 years, but the hatred in our hearts has not lessened. This is also fate. The old man stared at Wu Du with his green eyes. In these 10 years, it is rare for you to take such good care of me. Today, I will impart to you an ancient mystic technique. As the old man spoke, with a thought, a long vine wrapped around his body instantly flew up. With a swoosh, it charged into the stone wall dozens of feet away. Boom! Rubble flew as the slender vine pierced straight into the hard stone wall. Whoosh! The long vine was slowly pulled out, and at its tip was a sheepskin scroll. The long vine slowly handed the sheepskin scroll to Wu Du. Wu Du widened his eyes as he knelt on the ground with a thud and received it with both hands respectfully. Swoosh! The long vine retracted and wrapped around the old man's body once again. This scroll is called the 8 Desolation Scripture. It is a secret of Pear Blossom Palace that was never passed down. The old man said to Wu Du, 8 Desolation Scripture, Pear Blossom Palace's secret? Wu Du exclaimed. In his impression, there was only one supreme secret scripture in Pear Blossom Palace, and that was the Green Sorcery Scripture. He had never heard of the 8 Desolation Scripture. This 8 Desolation Scripture and the Green Sorcery Scripture were originally one body. It was called the Green Sorcery 8 Desolation Scripture, the old man said slowly. Back then, your Grandmaster took in 2 disciples and gave them the name Demiurge Incomplete. Demiurge Incomplete and Demiurge Incomplete. Wu Du exclaimed. Could it be? Chapter 393. Why did Grandmaster do this back then? Wu Du asked in confusion. I understand Grandmaster's painstaking efforts. He did this for the sake of Pear Blossom Palace. The old man said quietly, You must know that these 2 secret scriptures reveal the secrets of heaven and earth. The 8 Desolation Scripture records techniques, ancient secret techniques. When cultivated to the highest level, one can become an earth wizard. On the other hand, the Green Sorcerer Scripture records techniques, supreme secret techniques. When cultivated to the highest level, one can become a heaven wizard. The 2 are heaven and earth, one technique and one technique. Their powers are shocking and equally matched. If the 2 secret scriptures are combined, one can cultivate to become a god wizard. The reason why your Grandmaster split the Green Sorcerer 8 Desolation Scripture into 2 was to prevent one of them from walking on the path of evil and not being able to restrain him. You mean, Grandmaster passed down the position of Pear Blossom Palace to Tian Kenzi? Wu Du asked with a frown. The old man shook his head. When Master ascended, he didn't say who would be the master of Pear Blossom Palace. Instead, he told us to cultivate diligently and set a time limit of 3 years to compete. Whoever wins will be the master of Pear Blossom Palace. I see, Wu Du said with a frown. I used 3 years to cultivate the 3rd level of the 8 Desolation Scripture, but Tian Kenzi only cultivated the 2nd level of the Green Sorcerer Scripture. I originally thought that victory was in my hands. Who would have thought? The old man took a deep breath and sighed. I don't have any children in my life. I only have you as my disciple. I once lost to Tian Kenzi's burning the sky diagram. I can't let my disciple lose to this. Master, Wu Du's eyes turned red and his voice choked. I'll give you 3 years. In these 3 years, you must cultivate the 3rd level of the 8 desolation scripture. Also, the old man said to Wu Du, your flying snake will start to overcome the tribulation and transform into a flood dragon in 3 years. From now on, other than cultivating the 8 desolation scripture, you have to search for spiritual pills and immortal herbs to feed your flying snake to help it overcome the tribulation. 3 years later, my meridians will be completely recovered. At that time, you and I will work together and crush Tian, Kenzi, and Yi Yun into pieces and scatter their ashes. Master, don't worry. If I don't take revenge, I, Wu Du, am not human. Wu Du raised his head. Dawn. Golden Battle Palace? Is this the Tsuaming Hall? In front of the stone door, Akatsuki, dressed in a white robe and wearing a red crystal mask, turned her head and asked Yifan. In front of her, a towering 9-story stone building stood in front of her. Its eaves were overhanging and arched, giving it an extraordinary aura. At the main entrance, there were 2 huge Pishio carved from green jade, one on the left and one on the right. The Pishio was more than 6 feet tall, with its head raised and tail wagging. It was extremely majestic and lifelike. Other than the Golden Battle Palace, there was no other place in the world that could use such a large jade material to carve a Pishio and display it at the entrance. At the top of the gate, the 3 gilded ancient seals of the Golden Battle Palace were written in a majestic manner. One look, and one could tell that they were the work of a famous expert. That's right. Yifan, who was wearing the white jade mask, looked up at the stone building in front of him and said, this is the Tsuaming Hall. Let's go in. His beloved wife, Fujiwara no Chiko, had come here before, so Yifan could naturally find it. In. Akatsuki replied. The 2 walked towards the entrance of the Golden Battle Palace as they talked. At the entrance of the stone building, 2 guards, one fat and one thin, stood there quietly, calmly looking at the 2. Everything was as Fujiwara no Chiko had told him. There were people at the entrance who were responsible for inspecting banknotes. If one had less than 1,000 taels of wealth, they were not qualified to gamble here. However, what made him feel strange was that the 2 guards did not stop the 2 of them. They did not even ask. After thinking for a moment, Yifan understood. The reason why the guards did not stop them from inspecting the banknotes was because the masks on their faces were effective. One of the masks was made of the highest quality white jade, which was worth thousands of taels of gold, and the other was made of the highest quality red crystal, which was glittering with jewels. Since the 2 guards were responsible for inspecting the banknotes, they were naturally knowledgeable. How could they not have gambled when wearing such masks? After entering the door, Akatsuki was immediately stunned by the luxurious scene in front of her. The 4 walls of the stone building were covered with thick gold leaves, and under the light of the exquisite glass palace lanterns on the roof, it was particularly dazzling. All the tables and chairs were made of the highest quality Phoebe Janan wood, simple yet luxurious. What made Akatsuki even more surprised was that the entire floor of the Golden Battle Palace was made of glossy white jade, pure and flawless. What a good Golden Battle Palace! Akatsuki was secretly shocked. Because it was early in the morning, there was no one gambling in the spacious hall. Only a few workers were cleaning the gambling equipment and furniture. As long as it was a casino, it would only be busiest in the afternoon or at night. The 2 of them walked directly to the large counter. 2 distinguished guests. Do you want to gamble? Behind the counter, a worker dressed in gorgeous silk politely asked Yifan and Akatsuki. The 2's attire did not surprise the worker in the slightest. Most of the people who could enter this place had special status, so their attire was naturally different from ordinary people. We are not here to gamble, Yifan said. We are here to visit your boss Chui. Chapter 394. The Mr. Chui I'm talking about is your leader, Chui Ziwen, Master Chui. Yifan said as he took out a 2-inch long, deformed gold pancake and put on the counter. Do you recognize this thing? This gold pancake was none other than the gold coin that Chui Ziwen used to break his protective light ball when he fought with Chui Ziwen in the sky. Although it was completely deformed, some of the patterns could still be seen. The clerk at the counter picked up the gold pancake with a puzzled look and carefully observed it. Who would have thought that it would be better if he didn't look at it? But when he did, his face changed greatly. This gold coin was the one that Shui Ziwen often played with. Who are you? After recognizing the gold coin, the clerk at the counter immediately became serious. Why are you looking for our Master Chui? Master Chui's gold coins never left his hands. How could it appear in this person's hands? Clap, clap, clap. The clerk clapped his hands 3 times in a row. Shwa, 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 shwa. A few shadows flashed, and several clerks who were wiping the gambling equipment suddenly appeared behind the two of them and completely surrounded them. Although these people were doing the work of ordinary servants, when it came to fighting, they were not to be trifled with. One had to know that this was the headquarters of the swimming department. Any random servant will be a top-notch expert in Jianghu. Akatsuki looked around coldly and did not speak. Don't misunderstand, Yifan said calmly when he saw that the atmosphere was tense. I'm an old friend of your Master Chui. This time, I'm here to visit him. I don't mean any harm. The clerk at the counter stared straight at Yifan's eyes through the white jade mask, as if to see if he was lying. This was a gambling den, and the flow of people was extremely large. Those who came were either rich or respectable, and there were also quite a few famous experts in the pugilistic world who came here to pass the time. He was in charge of the counter at the Golden Battle Palace, so he naturally had seen countless people. He could tell whether someone was lying or not with a single glance. Yifan's eyes were calm, and his eyes were multicolored. It was obvious that he was an expert with extremely high cultivation. If this person really wanted to make a move, they probably wouldn't even be able to withstand a single move. You wait here. I'll go inform the sect leader. After saying that, the shop assistant waved his hand at the other shop assistants before turning around and heading upstairs. A few of the shop assistants understood and immediately dispersed. Yifan smiled. Although these workers seemed to have let down their guard against the two of them, in reality, they were more relaxed on the outside than on the inside. A few of them put aside the gambling equipment beside them to wipe the stone door instead of wiping it. It was obvious that they were waiting for instructions from the person just now. If it really was an enemy, they would quickly close the stone door and swarm in with just a look. This swimming hall really lives up to its reputation. Akatsuki also saw through the trick. Ha! What wind blew you here today, Brother Chun? Following a hearty laugh, Chui Zuan, dressed in a black robe with golden threads, slowly walked down the stairs with a smile on his face. Greetings, Master Chui. When Yifan saw Chui Zuan appear, he immediately cupped his fists and bowed. I told you last time that you were too polite. You're still the same, Chui Zuan said with a smile. Greetings, Master Chui. Akatsuki bowed to Chui Zuan. Chui Zuan turned his head and looked at Akatsuki. It was obvious that this woman was from Dongying. It could be seen from her etiquette. This is... Chui Zuan looked at Yifan. She is... Yifan didn't know how to introduce Akatsuki. My name is Akatsuki. I'm Mr. Matsumoto's subordinate. Akatsuki went straight to the point. Chui Zuan furrowed his brows and immediately started counting with his fingers under his sleeves. In just a moment, Chui Zuan's brows relaxed and a smile appeared on his face again. Miss you is too polite. Chui Zuan nodded to Akatsuki and smiled. How has Mr. Matsumoto been? Mr. Matsumoto is healthy. Thank you, Master Chui, for your concern. Akatsuki lowered her head and answered. That's good. Chui Zuan smiled meaningfully. This sentence seemed to be answering Akatsuki, but it also seemed like he was talking to himself. Master Chui, Yifan said to Chui Zuan, I came here abruptly because I have a request. Yifan said as he looked at the workers around him. Chui Zuan understood tacitly. You guys serve Miss you well. Don't neglect her, Chui Zuan said to the workers and turned to look at Yifan. Come with me. After Chui Zuan finished speaking, he waved his sleeves and went upstairs. Chui Zuan's meaning couldn't be more obvious. He only talked to Yifan in private. Wait for me here. Yifan turned to Akatsuki and said. Akatsuki nodded. Yifan turned around and followed Chui Zuan upstairs. Yu Hongji, on the other hand, sat down at a table. A few workers immediately served fragrant tea and snacks. To Akatsuki's surprise, there was a plate of exquisite sushi and a plate of sashimi in the snack tray. She only knew that the Dojinshi Palace was luxurious, but she didn't know that the service was so good. Chapter 395. Those who were able to come to the Dojin Palace to gamble were either rich or noble. Not only were there high-ranking officials of the Great Ming Dynasty, there were also experts of the martial arts world. There were also many distinguished guests from overseas who came because of the reputation of the Dojin Palace. There were short Japanese guests, Persian aristocrats with exquisite facial features, Korean aristocrats who wore tall hats, and even European merchants with high noses and blue eyes. Different races and cultures naturally had different living habits. The Dojin Palace was filled with experts from various countries. Whatever they wanted to eat, they only needed to tell the waiter, and it wouldn't take long for someone to bring it to the table. Japanese sushi and sashimi, Persia's cherigabo, stewed rice with meat skewers, Europe's roast turkey, and even Korea's kimchi were all authentic. Because she was wearing a mask, Akatsuki didn't eat any of these things. She sat there quietly and fell into deep thought. She was thinking about why Yifan brought her here. On the way here, she didn't ask Yifan about the purpose of this trip. The reason was simple. If Yifan wanted to say something, he would naturally tell her. If Yifan didn't want to say, she wouldn't ask too much. She didn't want to give Yifan the impression that she wanted to ask about everything. But even so, she was still very curious. Just now, Yifan said that he had something to ask of Cui Ziwen. What could it be? He wanted Cui Ziwen to help him find the 9 cauldrons? That must be it. Before she came to the Great Ming Dynasty, she had heard her master Shigoku-chin talk about Cui Ziwen's Tsueming Hall. This Tsueming Hall was very powerful and could be called the #1 gang in the Great Ming Dynasty. It was said that this Tsueming Hall had branches all over the Great Ming Dynasty. The experts under them were as numerous as the clouds, and their strength was astonishing. Moreover, the sect leader Cui Ziwen's cultivation was heaven-defying. No one could compare to him. With the strength of the Tsueming Hall, it wasn't impossible for them to find the 9 cauldrons. Akatsuki pondered while waiting for Yifan to come down. On the other side, Cui Ziwen brought Yifan to the 9th floor of the Battle Golden Palace. Rumble. Cui Ziwen flicked his sleeves, and the large stone door swung open. Come, come, come. Make yourself at home. Cui Ziwen smiled and walked in. Thank you, Master Cui, Yifan replied as he followed Cui Ziwen into the spacious stone chamber. With a rumbling sound, the stone door closed. After Yifan entered, he began to size up this stone room. This stone room was extremely spacious and abnormally spacious. Compared to the luxurious decorations on the other 8 floors, the decorations here were very ordinary. The walls and floor were all paved with smooth wooden planks, which made people feel very comfortable. On the side wall, there was a very large Western-style fireplace. In the fireplace, there was a blazing fire, which made the whole stone room very warm. In the middle of the stone room, there was a large and exquisite Persian carpet. On top of the carpet, there was a large azure dragon throne that was exquisitely carved out of green jade. The azure dragon throne was made of exquisite materials, and the workmanship was top-notch. The design was exquisite. 9 azure dragons were coiled on top of the throne, baring their fangs and brandishing their claws. Opposite the azure dragon throne, there was a large transparent crystal glass wall. It was sparkling and translucent. Looking through the glass wall, one's field of vision was extremely wide. After seeing this glass wall, Yifan couldn't help but secretly exclaim in admiration. This Tsueming Hall was really rich. Not to mention other things, just this sparkling and translucent crystal glass wall was worth at least 10,000 taels of silver. Schwa! Just as Yifan was silently marveling at the shocking wealth of the Swaiming department, Cui Ziwen, who was dressed in a black robe with golden threads, waved his long sleeves. A large red sandalwood square table and an exquisite rosewood armchair instantly appeared in front of the azure dragon seat. On the square table, there was a jade teapot, white jade teacups, fruits, and pastries. Everything was available. What a great teleportation technique! Yi Fan exclaimed in admiration in his heart. Cui Ziwen's skill level and strength was something he had never seen before. Brother Yi, sit, Cui Ziwen said to Yi Fan as he sat on the Azure Dragon throne. Thank you, Master Cui, Yi Fan said as he sat on the armchair opposite Cui Ziwen. I've already called you Brother Yi. Why are you still calling me Master Cui? Cui Ziwen said with a smile as he picked up the jade teapot and poured tea into the 2 white jade teacups. The aroma of tea filled the air. Other than his teacher Lu Ji, Yi Fan was the first person that Cui Ziwen personally poured tea for. He valued friendship, righteousness, and was vicious and merciless. This young man's way of doing things was very much to his taste. In this person, Cui Ziwen seemed to see his past self. Cui Ziwen's words stunned Yi Fan. Don't call me Master Cui in the future. It sounds so awkward. If you don't mind, you can call me Big Brother Cui, Cui Ziwen said as he placed a white jade cup filled with tea in front of Yi Fan. Big Brother Cui. Yi Fan was shocked and immediately opened his mouth. He didn't think that Cui Ziwen would take the initiative to call him a brother. What kind of person was Cui Ziwen? He couldn't wait to climb up the social ladder. So how could he dislike him? That sounds much better, Cui Ziwen said with a smile. In less than 3 sentences, the 2 of them had become brothers. Cui Ziwen had always been simple and straightforward. He never dragged his feet and didn't care about unnecessary formalities. After hearing Cui Ziwen's words, Yi Fan suddenly felt less restrained. He suddenly felt that he was still quite lucky. Brother Kim had passed on his cultivation to him. His best friends Nie Qing and Bai Sheng were secretly protecting him. Qing Chenzi was willing to sacrifice his lifespan to reveal heavenly secrets to him. Jin Chan was like family to him. Bai Hu Xiao Zhao was willing to sacrifice her life to save him. Now he had a big brother Cui with heaven-defying cultivation and shocking means. Chapter 396. Brother Cui, look, Yi Fan said as he took off the white jade mask on his face. Then he lifted the wide hat on his head. Cui Ziwen, who was about to drink tea, stopped the white jade cup in front of his mouth. The Yi Fan in front of him had a head of white hair. Cui Ziwen frowned and placed the white jade cup on the red sandalwood square table. The last time he saved Succubus, this young man had a head of black hair. Now, in less than 2 months, his hair had turned white. What kind of change could make him look like this? Cui Ziwen was shocked and started to calculate in his sleeves again. In that instant, Cui Ziwen's expression changed slightly, and he instantly understood everything. Dai Tengu's attack, Inchan Daxiong's sneak attack, Baihu's inner core, Japan's evil-seeking cauldron, Glacier immortal seeking grass. Under his calculations, everything appeared in his mind, scene by scene. The progress of the matter had far exceeded Cui Ziwen's expectations. According to his calculation, Yi Fan would need at least 2 years to know about the 9 cauldrons. But the result of the calculation just now told him that Yi Fan had already started a search for the 9 cauldrons. It seemed like an expert had already revealed the heavenly secret to him. Cui Ziwen thought, this person was either Zhang Temple's Qing Chenzi or the mysterious old man that appeared in the northern glacier. The reason was simple. When the scene of Yi Fan entering Zhang Temple and Yi Fan meeting the mysterious old man appeared in his mind, the scene was instantly cut off and blank. The old man was surrounded by immortal qi and had 2 pupils in his eyes. It was obvious that he was a true immortal from the upper realm, and a true immortal from the upper realm would never reveal the heavenly secret. The person who revealed the heavenly secret to Yi Fan was most likely Zhang Temple's Qing Chenzi. Whoosh! After Yi Fan lifted his hood, Baihu jumped onto Yi Fan's shoulder and into Yi Fan's arms. This was Baihu, the one who had sacrificed her life source Niden to save Yi Fan. What an affectionate and righteous Baihu. Cui Ziwen was secretly amazed. Big Brother Cui, it's a long story, Yi Fan said as he prepared to tell Cui Ziwen what happened in the past. You don't have to say anymore. I already know. Cui Ziwen waved his hand and interrupted Yi Fan. As soon as he said this, Yi Fan was stunned. Let me ask you, did Qin Chenzi tell you everything about the 9 cauldrons? Did he tell you to understand the mystery of the patterns and save your wife's soul? Chui Ziwen went straight to the point and asked with a frown. Chui Ziwen's words made Yi Fan's pupils contract instantly. He did not expect Chui Ziwen's deduction skills to be so powerful that he was not inferior to Qin Chenzi at all. Yi Fan thought about it for a moment before he nodded his head with a serious expression. Since Chui Ziwen had already deduced the ins and outs of the matter, there was nothing for him to hide. It's really him. Chui Ziwen frowned as he muttered to himself. Is this guy crazy? Senior Qin Chenzi revealed the heavenly secret in order to guide me and lost 3 years of his life. Yi Fan said guiltily. 3 years of life? Humph. Chui Ziwen shook his head with a bitter smile. My silly brother, do you know what 3 years of life means to him? Yi Fan frowned and looked at Chui Ziwen with a puzzled expression. He did not understand Chui Ziwen's words. Let me tell you, Qin Chenzi of the Purple Sun Temple has already cultivated to the earth immortal realm. There is no such thing as losing one's life. He has been staying in this world and is not willing to ascend. He is waiting for his immortal disciple to complete the tribulation and pass the divine cauldron and golden bell to him. Now that he has revealed the heavenly secret in advance, I'm afraid. Chui Ziwen said and slowly shook his head. I'm afraid what? Yi Fan heard this and suddenly stood up from his chair. Chui Ziwen's words made his heart jump to his throat. Let me ask you, after he revealed the heavenly secret to you, did his appearance change? Chui Ziwen asked Yi Fan. Yes. Yi Fan frowned and immediately replied. Half of Senior Qin Chenzi's hair has turned white. Sigh. Chui Ziwen leaned heavily on the azure dragon chair and closed his eyes. Big brother Chui, what happened to Senior Qin Chenzi? Yi Fan anxiously asked. Have you seen any immortal's life being shortened? Chui Ziwen said with his eyes closed. His hair turning white can only mean one thing. Because he revealed the heavenly secret, his immortal title was taken back by the heavens, and he is now immortal. After hearing Chui Ziwen's words, Yi Fan's body slumped heavily into the armchair. His gaze was blank, and his eyes were red. In order to help him, Qin Chenzi gave up his immortal title. Hot tears flowed from Yi Fan's eyes. Sigh. This guy. Chui Ziwen sighed with emotion as he sat on the azure dragon throne. People in the world were greedy for fame and fortune. Only 1 in 10,000 could truly put down their 7 emotions and 6 desires and cultivate the way of immortality. Since ancient times, a myriad of people had entered the mountains to bitterly cultivate and learn the Tao. However, those that were able to cultivate the grand Tao and ascend into the heavens were extremely rare, and they could be counted with one's fingers. He had heard of immortals from the upper realm being sent down to the mortal realm to suffer because of their mistakes, but he had never heard of anyone giving up their immortal title to save someone. And Qin Chenzi, this immortal who had yet to ascend to the heavens, actually made such a choice. Eldritch, oh Eldritch, what kind of person are you to be able to make such a rational person like Qin Chenzi make such a sacrifice for you? Brother Qin Chenzi, I hope you'll be right this time. Chui Ziwen thought and opened his eyes to look at Yi Fan. At this moment, Yi Fan's lips were trembling and his tears were unstoppable. Chapter 397. Brother, don't be too sad, Chui Ziwen said when he saw Yi Fan's tears fall. Since he did this for you, he must have his reasons. What you need to do now is not to disappoint him. Find the 9 cauldrons as soon as possible and protect your divine cauldron inscriptions. Then, you will achieve supreme merit and save your wife. Big brother Chui, does Senior Qin Chenzi still have a chance to obtain another immortal position? Yi Fan wiped away his tears and asked Chui Ziwen. That depends on you, Chui Ziwen said to Yi Fan. If you can obtain supreme merit, brother Qin Chenzi will naturally have a share. Maybe he can make up for his mistakes. Really? Yi Fan's eyes lit up. Chui Ziwen nodded seriously. Big brother Chui, To be honest, I've already found a divine cauldron. It's under the Sisui River, Yi Fan said to Chui Zuan. Unfortunately, my second level of the Xiantian secret stronghold is unable to break through the barrier. I've come to visit you this time to ask for your guidance. Since Qing Chenzi told you the secret of the 9 cauldrons, he must have mentioned the power of the yin-yang immortal, Chui Ziwen said to Yi Fan. Yi Fan nodded. It was obvious that Chui Ziwen also knew the secret of the 9 divine cauldrons. Discussing this matter with someone who knew about it shouldn't be considered divulging a heavenly secret. To break through the barrier of the 9 cauldrons, you must use yin to break yin and yang to break yang, Chui Ziwen said to Yi Fan. Although your second level of the Xiantian secret essentials is powerful, it has not reached the level of immortal power. Among the 9 cauldrons, there are 5 yang and 4 yin. 5 of them are yang cauldrons and are made of majestic gold. 4 of them are yin cauldrons and are made of yin. Since the divine cauldron is in the Sisui River, it is most likely a yin cauldron. The Xiantian secret essentials is a domineering yang technique. Without a certain level of cultivation, it is impossible to break through the barrier. Now, if you want to break through the divine cauldron in the Sisui River, you need the power of an immortal of yin. The power of an immortal of yin? Yi Fan frowned. This reminded him of Bai Sheng. He had heard from Xiao Zhao that Bai Sheng was the head of the myriad immortal tower and cultivated the power of yin. With his ability, he would definitely be able to reach the power of an immortal of yin. Unfortunately, although Bai Sheng's cultivation was close to the ghost immortal realm, according to what he knew, Bai Sheng had an extreme yin body while he had a physical body. Not to mention that Bai Sheng was far away in Japan and had a heavy responsibility. Even if he was right in front of him and was willing to teach him, he would still have to force himself to cultivate the ghost Dao with his physical body. Even if it was barely feasible, it would be several decades later when he cultivated to the point where he possessed the power of an immortal. He didn't have that much time. What he wanted was a quick way. The power of yin is easy to obtain, but the power of an immortal is hard to find. Chui Ziwen said, although I can help you break the enchantment of this cauldron, Qing Chenzi must have told you that if you want to understand the secret pattern on the 9 cauldrons, you have to break the enchantment of the 9 cauldrons with your own strength. Although I have the intention to teach you the power of an immortal of yin in your current state, you won't be able to cultivate it. If you force yourself to cultivate it, you will definitely go berserk and have the opposite effect. Chui Ziwen had already deduced the purpose of Yi Fan's trip, so before Yi Fan could speak, he told him the truth. Brother Chui, I can endure hardships. Please teach me. Yi Fan stood up and bowed to Chui Ziwen. Since Chui Ziwen had a way to break the enchantment of the yin cauldron, he must have a way to cultivate the power of an immortal of yin. He and Chui Ziwen both had physical bodies. As long as he worked hard, he would definitely be able to cultivate the power of an immortal in time. When Chui Ziwen saw Yi Fan bow to him, he quickly stood up and helped Yi Fan up. It's not that I don't want to teach you. It's just that you can't cultivate it right now, Chui Ziwen said to Yi Fan. Why? Yi Fan asked in confusion. I'm sure you've heard about what happened to me, Chui Ziwen said to Yi Fan. Before I founded Swimming Hall, I was a disciple of the Maoshan sect. After that incident, I founded Swimming Hall. The reason why I'm at my current level of cultivation is entirely because of the foundation of my Taoist techniques. Although your spiritual energy is pure and abundant, you know nothing about Taoist techniques. Brother Chui, I can learn. Yi Fan pleaded. Let me finish. Chui Ziwen continued. With your aptitude, it won't be difficult for you to learn this Taoist technique. However, Taoist techniques are based on tranquility and inaction. You can't have the slightest bit of worldly desires. You're in a hurry to save your wife, so you can't swing your sword to cut off your emotions. If you force yourself to cultivate it, it will only backfire. These words left Yi Fan speechless. Chui Ziwen was right. He was in a hurry to save his wife. His mind was filled with his beloved wife, Fujiwara no Chiko. It was impossible for him to achieve tranquility and inaction. Yi Fan felt a sense of loss in his heart. Without the power of the immortal of extreme yin, How could he break the divine cauldron's boundary and obtain the patterns of the 9 cauldrons? Qing Qinzi must have told you that the responsibility of the bellkeeper is to protect the inscriptions on the inside of the divine cauldron. As for the patterns on the outside of the divine cauldron, they can't take the initiative to hand them over. Cui Zuin said, "Although I have the black bell, I can't take the initiative to hand over the patterns of the divine cauldron to you. You can only complete all of this by yourself." Yi Fan nodded with a serious expression on his face. Chapter 398. Little brother, you don't have to worry too much. Cui Zuin saw that Yi Fan was feeling down, so he said, "You should know that there is always a way out. Although I can't help you obtain the power of the extreme Yin Sage this time, I won't let you return empty-handed." Cui Zuin smiled as he lifted the white jade cup and took a sip of the fragrant tea. "Brother Cui, you mean?" Yi Fan didn't understand what Cui Zuin meant. "Your movement technique is as fast as lightning, and your speed is astonishing, but in the end, you still rely on your spiritual energy to propel yourself forward." Cui Zuin smiled as he placed a white jade cup on the square table. "I told you last time, spiritual energy is the source of power. When facing an enemy, every bit of spiritual energy you have will increase your chances of victory. However, you actually used such pure spiritual energy to travel through the air, it can be said that you are wasting a precious resource. Furthermore, every time you fight against an expert, you will need to use the 2 divine weapons, the Ice Dragon and Fiery Divine weapons. This is not a long-term solution." Cui Zuin's words hit the nail on the head, and Yi Fan was completely convinced. His amazing movement technique was the result of him using his own spiritual energy. Before he started cultivating the Xintian secret essentials, he thought that this was a problem. But after he started cultivating the Xintian secret essentials, he didn't put this problem to heart. Compared to the pure spiritual energy in his body, the amount of spiritual energy he used to propel his movement technique was nothing. But after he met Dai Tengu, this problem was exposed. If he still had some spiritual energy left, he wouldn't have been ambushed by Inchandashion. Then, his beloved wife, Fujiwara no Chiko, wouldn't have her soul taken away. Other than his own spiritual energy, he relies on the 2 divine weapons, the Ice Dragon and Fiery Divine weapons the most. Without the help of these 2 divine weapons, he would have died dozens of times already. Having the help of divine weapons is a good thing, but relying on them too much isn't a long-term solution. You should know that in this world, there are more than just your 2 swords that can be considered divine weapons. Cui Zuin continued to say to Yi Fan, "If the opponent doesn't have a divine weapon, you can use these 2 divine weapons to gain the upper hand. But if the opponent also has a divine weapon, whether you can win or lose depends on your cultivation. That Dai Tengu you fought with didn't even make a move, but he already exhausted your spiritual energy. If he directly attacked you or used his divine weapon, what would the result be?" Yi Fan's words. That day, if Dai Tengu didn't keep his promise, or if Dai Tengu didn't bring a divine throne, he would have died. Overflowing spiritual energy and relying on the divine weapon. This is your weakness, a fatal weakness. Cui Zuin on the Azure Dragon throne sat up straight, staring into Yi Fan's eyes. "You should know that there will always be someone stronger than you. If one day you meet an opponent whose spiritual energy is stronger than yours, you will definitely die." Beads of cold sweat started to form on Yi Fan's forehead. Cui Zuin's words made him feel a lingering fear. "Please give me some pointers, big brother Cui," Yi Fan said to Cui Zuin as he wiped his sweat. "The 2 spirit snake nadens in your body are extremely rare items, but they have become a burden to you." Cui Zuin smiled as he leaned his body against the Azure Dragon throne. "Today, I will pass on the cloud riding technique and the method to activate the Naiden to you. Consider it a greeting gift from me as your big brother." Cloud riding technique? Using the inner core technique? Yi Fan's eyes lit up. If a normal cultivator wants to learn the cloud riding technique without tens of years of hard work, it is impossible. Even if they manage to do it, they will not be able to withstand the cold air and will either die or be injured. I see that your immortal bones are strong, with spiritual energy protecting your body and the Shantian secrets strengthening your body. If you want to learn the cloud riding technique, it will be as easy as flipping your hand. When you go out in the future, you don't need to look at the clouds in the sky. Chui Ziwen smiled. Yifan was overjoyed as he heard this. Although his current movement technique was extremely fast, there was no cover at all. At night, or when there were many clouds, it was still fine. He could use the night and the clouds as cover. However, if it was in the middle of the day, when there were no clouds for thousands of miles, it would not be so convenient. This was great. With the cloud riding technique, he could move at any time without any restrictions. As for using the inner core technique, for the current you, it is like a dragon that has obtained a pearl and a tiger that has grown wings. Chui Ziwen smiled at Yifan. Like a tiger that has grown wings? Yifan asked in return. The two inner cores in your body, one ice and one fire, are the result of two extremely rare spiritual objects nurturing them for thousands of years. They are extremely rare in the world. Chui Ziwen picked up the white jade cup and drank a mouthful of tea before continuing. This inner core of ice and fire is completely different from the inner cores of ordinary spiritual objects. Its spiritual energy is extremely strong. What is even rarer is that these two inner cores have been tamed by the spiritual energy in your body. Now, as long as I teach you the inner core of ice and fire, you will be able to freely use them. At that time, you will not need to use the cold dragon's flame and can directly release an astonishing cold air and frightening heat. As for how powerful this inner core of ice and fire is, you will know when you try it. After hearing this, Yifan was shocked. The inner core of ice and fire that he had always thought of as a burden actually had such a great effect. The cloud riding technique and the inner core technique can be used directly without the slightest bit of spiritual energy. The cloud riding technique can replace the movement technique, and the inner core technique can replace the magic weapon. In this way, your two weaknesses can be considered to have been compensated. Chui Ziwen smiled at Yifan. No need to use spiritual energy? This sentence shocked Yifan so much that he immediately stood up from his seat. He did not expect that these two techniques did not require the support of spiritual energy. If this was really the case, then it was just as Chui Ziwen had said. It was like a dragon that has obtained a pearl and a tiger that has grown wings. Chapter 399. Thank you, Big Brother Chui. Yifan cupped his fist towards Chui Ziwen. With these two techniques, if he were to meet a top expert in the future, his chances of winning would greatly increase. Here we go again. Chui Ziwen waved his hand with a smile. Yifan gave an awkward smile and sat back down in the armchair. You are now at Matsumoto Takayoshi's place, so you have to be careful and not be careless. Chui Ziwen picked up the teapot and poured tea into the cup. That old man is full of tricks and has a large group of experts, so you have to be on guard. Big Brother Chui can rest assured on this point. Yifan replied. He is using me to help him find the cauldrons. With the 9 cauldrons missing, he won't do anything to me. Even so, you have to know that Matsumoto Takayoshi is not the only one who wants to kill you. Chui Ziwen looked at Yifan as he spoke. Since Xietian already knows that you have the white bell, he will naturally be eyeing you like a tiger watching its prey. Not only you, Purple Sun Temple's Mingyu, Tsing E Society's Yi Shuihan, Eagle Distress Peaks, Yi Ming, Bai Hu in your arms, and me are all their targets. Tsing E Society? Yi Shuihan? It was Yifan's first time hearing this name. From Chui Ziwen's words, Yifan could tell that Yi Shuihan also had the white bell. Chui Ziwen heard Yifan's question and told Yifan everything about the Tsing E Society. The Tsing E Society was famous for the fact that everyone in the society wore green clothes and did things in secret. It was founded by the special ability expert Yi Shuihan. It was said that Yi Shuihan was born with a special ability. His ability was so strong that even experts who had cultivated for many years were shocked. Not to mention anything else, just this person's emotions alone could affect the weather. If he was happy, there would be a clear blue sky above his head with a gentle breeze. If he was troubled, there would be a large gloomy cloud above his head. If he was sad and melancholy, there would be a drizzle pouring down. If he was angry, there would be dark clouds above his head, violent winds and torrential rain, lightning flashing and thunder rumbling. This phenomenon began to appear when he was 3 years old, and as he grew older, his ability became stronger and stronger, and the range of his influence also increased. In the beginning, he could only influence an area of a few dozen feet, but by the time he was 7, he could already influence an entire village. By the time he was 10, he could already influence the weather of an entire town. As a result, the local people did not go to the Dragon King temple when they prayed for rain. Instead, they went to his house to beg him. She begged him to fly into a rage and bring down the sweet rain. To be honest, this ability made Ishuehan, who was only 10 years old, extremely distressed. The ability that others envied was like a plague in his eyes. He could not wait to avoid it. He was not a saint, and it was impossible for him to be happy every day. Although his family tried their best not to affect his mood after learning about his ability, they whispered to him every day and tried their best to satisfy him. They were afraid that once he lost his temper, the people would suffer. But in his opinion, he was no different from a monster. Everyone kept a respectful distance from him and never dared to say a word to him. Even the surrounding neighbors moved away. If he was not a monster, what was he? Such days were simply torture for him. Since he was a child, when other children gathered to play in the alley, he could only watch from afar and did not dare to go forward. This was because whenever he went over, the other children would stay far away from him. They would call him a monster and scatter. Every time this happened, he would start to feel sad. Naturally, a dark cloud would appear above his head, and it would drizzle. The drizzle was like silk patting on his face. It was cool, as if it was comforting him. Every time he saw a patch of dark clouds suddenly appear in the fine weather, his father would take an umbrella and go out to find him. Then he would open the umbrella and bring the silent and drenched Ishuehan home. His days at home were better. After all, his family would spoil him and let him have his way. But when he went to school, it was troublesome. Not a single private school was willing to take him in. It was not because they discriminated against him, but because they were worried that if he got into an argument with other children and got angry, there would be lightning and thunder, injuring other children. That would not be good. Since he could not go to school to study, then he could at least hire a teacher. Ishuehan's family was not bad. His father, Xin, spent a lot of money to hire a teacher to teach him alone. But good times did not last long. After a month, the teacher said that he could not teach anymore. Even if he was paid more, he would not do it. The reason was simple. Since he was teaching, he would definitely talk about the 100 schools of thought, Qin Huang, Han Wu, and the history of war. At the beginning, it was fine. The teacher taught Ishuehan the 4 books and 5 classics without any problems. But when he talked about Qin Shi Huang burning books and burying Confucians, Ishuehan's anger came. First, there was a strong wind in the room, blowing the books, tables, brushes, ink, and paper into a mess. The teacher knew Ishuehan's ability, so he was prepared in advance. If the books were blown away, he would just pick them up. If the ink was blown away, he would just grind another pot. But later, when he talked about the shame of the Song dynasty's Jinkong, Ishuehan could no longer control himself. He was so angry that his hair stood up, and he slammed the table. He saw a strong wind inside and outside the room, blowing sand and stones. The roof was quickly blown away by the wind. The teacher tightly hugged a pillar in the room, afraid that it would be blown away by the wind. Chapter 400. This thunderous roar caused the teacher's ears to ring and his heart to beat rapidly. He almost fainted. When Ishuehan's father heard the sound of wind and thunder, he immediately rushed in and dragged the teacher, who was already trembling in fear, out. The first thing the teacher, whose hair and face were disheveled by the strong wind, said after he recovered was, "I won't do this even if you beat me to death. If I continue to do this, I'll lose my life." After he finished speaking, he did not even ask for his payment and scrambled out of the courtyard. Looking at Ishuehan's innocent face, Exian patted Ishuahin's head and smiled bitterly. From then on, no teacher dared to teach Ishuahan. Exian also sighed and shook his head bitterly every day. Coincidentally, just as Exian decided to teach his son personally, a young wandering Taoist came to visit and claimed that he wanted to be the child's teacher. Exian was a Taoist. Seeing that the person was dressed in a Taoist robe and had a celestial aura, he immediately invited the Taoist into the house and asked the Taoist's name and celestial background. The Taoist waved his hand and smiled, saying that he was a wandering Taoist and his Taoist name was Qing Zhu. This time, he specially came to seek a master-disciple relationship. Exian was puzzled and quickly asked for the reason. The Taoist smiled and said that this was a heavenly secret and could not be revealed. He told Exian that he had a master-disciple relationship with his child and that he would be teaching this child in the future. Exian saw that although the Taoist was young, he had a celestial aura and decided to give it a try. He agreed to the Taoist's request and decided to give it a try. From then on, Taoist Qing Zhu officially became Ishuahan's teacher. At first, Ishuahan did not take this teacher to heart. He felt that it would not be long before this teacher would be like the previous one and leave. However, he did not expect that this teacher would be completely different from the previous one. This Taoist Qing Zhu was extremely knowledgeable. He knew everything from astronomy to geography. There was nothing he did not know. This was secondary. What Ishuahan admired the most was this teacher's Tao techniques and his temperament of being as calm as still water. Ishuahan remembered one time when the Taoist was talking about Dong, which was bloodthirsty nature in the Three Kingdoms period, and how he massacred tens of thousands of people in a single day. Ishuahan's temper flared up. He could not suppress the anger in his heart and slammed the table angrily. In an instant, a strong wind blew in all directions in the courtyard, sending sand and stones flying. In the blink of an eye, the clear sky was immediately covered by dark clouds. Strong winds blew, lightning flashed, and thunder rolled. He then looked at Taoist Qing Zhu and smiled. He calmly picked up an oilcloth umbrella beside him, opened it, and threw it into the air. That oilcloth umbrella was specially prepared by Ishuahan's father for the Taoist. Ishuahan was full of emotions. If there was a storm, it could be used as a temporary shelter. The oilcloth umbrella was an ordinary oilcloth umbrella, but in Taoist Qing Zhu's hands, it became extraordinary. The oilcloth umbrella slowly rotated and rose. As it rose, it became bigger and bigger. The umbrella that was 3 feet in size finally turned into a huge umbrella cover that was more than 10 feet in size, covering the entire courtyard. Ishuahan was stunned by the scene in front of him. His anger immediately dissipated. He was completely captivated by Taoist Qing Zhu's Tao techniques. Once his anger dissipated, the thunder and lightning in the sky disappeared and everything returned to normal. Taoist Qing Zhu saw that the weather had returned to normal and waved his hand at the huge umbrella in the air. The oilcloth umbrella slowly fell and returned to its original appearance. Ishuahan, who did not think much of Taoist Qing Zhu, was completely convinced. Not only him, even Exian, who had been secretly observing, was completely stunned by this scene. He did not expect this young Taoist to have such godlike skills. From then on, the entire family treated Taoist Qing Zhu as an important guest. Ishuahan was especially polite to his godlike teacher. He did not dare to be careless. Taoist Qing Zhu was still the same. He would appear punctually at the family residence every morning and leave before sunset, rain or shine. Time flew by, and 5 years passed very quickly. The gifted and intelligent Ishuahan had also grown from an ignorant child into a knowledgeable, refined, and elegant young man. That night, Ishuahan, who was sleeping soundly, suddenly felt someone calling his name. When he opened his eyes, he found Taoist Qing Zhu standing beside his bed, looking at him with a smile. "Master, why are you here?" Ishuahan quickly sat up and got off his bed. "I'm here to bid you farewell." Taoist Qing Zhu looked at Ishuahan and said calmly. "Farewell?" Ishuahan asked curiously. Master, where are you going? He felt that something was wrong. I'm going back, Taoist Qing Zhu said with a smile. Go back. Ishuehan was even more confused. Where are we going? Taoist Qing Zhu pointed above him. Up there. Up there? Ishuehan looked up at the ceiling, not understanding what his master meant. I've been in the lower realm for 5 days. It's time to go back, Taoist Qing Zhu said calmly. Lower realm? The lower realm? Ishuehan suddenly understood what his master meant when he pointed above his head. Master, you're a god? Are you an immortal? Ishuehan stuttered. Chapter 401. You are. Are you immortal? Are you really an immortal? Ishuehan never thought that his teacher was actually an immortal from the heavenly realm. You and I are master and disciple, so I will let you see my original appearance, Green Bamboo said. His body suddenly shone with a golden light. His original yellow robe immediately changed his appearance, but it could be seen that he had changed his appearance. His face was like the autumn moon, his eyebrows were like ink, his skin was like cream, and his eyes were like cold stars. He wore a 9 heavens crown, a green silk immortal robe, and a jade belt around his waist. He stepped on the clouds. Dazzling. He looked like an immortal. Ishuehan was completely stunned. I'm a golden immortal from the upper realm, and my Taoist name is Qing Zhu. During the spring and autumn warring states period, I became a monk and met my master, Immortal Buhua, in Kunlun. After 300 years of hard work, I achieved enlightenment and received the imperial order to become a golden immortal. Qing Zhu said, You were my sword boy in your previous life, but because your Taoist heart was unstable and you were greedy for the mortal world, I sent you to the mortal world. I planned to let you be in the 6 realms of reincarnation, but because you and I are master and disciple, I can't bear to see you fall in this mortal world, so I specially went down for 5 days to teach you. In the future, when the opportunity is ripe, I will come to save you. Ishuehan was stunned on the spot. He did not expect that he would have such a past. Thinking of this, he knelt on the ground with a plop. Master, Ishuehan shouted, I'll give you this original tranquility manual today. You should practice it well. Qing Zhu took out a thin ancient book from his sleeve and handed it to Ishuehan. From today onwards, you start to abstain from killing and eating meat. Only eat vegetarian food, and clean up your stomach. I'll come to see you after 3 years. Ishuehan, who was kneeling on the ground, took the ancient book with both hands. Before he could speak, Qing Zhu waved his sleeve, turned into a golden light, and disappeared. Master, Ishuehan shouted and sat up on the bed with a whoosh. It was a dream. Ishuehan, who woke up, thought to himself. However, just as he was wondering why he had such a dream, he suddenly found an ancient book next to his pillow. There were 5 words written on it. Original Tranquil Heart Chant Manual. Only then did Ishuehan realize that everything that had just happened was not a dream. From then on, Ishuehan practiced every day, not daring to waste a single day. Speaking of which, it was strange. Ever since he started cultivating this technique manual, his emotions had not flared up. His heart was as calm as still water, and he was unmoved by anything. No more emotional outbursts occurred again. 3 years passed in a flash. One night, 3 years later, Qing Zhu appeared at Ishuehan's bedside again, as he said before he left. This time, Ishuehan could feel that his master, Qing Zhu, had something on her mind because her expression was very solemn. How is your practice? After Qing Zhu appeared, the first thing she asked was Ishuehan's homework. Master, disciple is slow. Ishuehan lowered his head and said in a low voice, For 3 years, disciple has been diligently practicing every day, but now I have only reached the 2nd level. Good. Qing Zhu nodded. This original Tranquil Heart Chant Manual is not only profound, but also obscure and difficult to understand. It is very rare for you to be able to comprehend the 2nd level. This technique manual was indeed, as Qing Zhu said, extremely obscure and difficult to understand. Originally, he thought that he would be reprimanded by his master, but instead of reprimanding him, his master was very satisfied with his homework. After Ishuehan heard this, his hanging heart finally fell to the ground. This time, I came here for two things. Qing Zhu said, first, I want to see how your homework is going, and second, there's one thing I want you to do. Do you want me to do something? Ishuehan asked, what is it? Qing Zhu did not directly answer. Instead, she took out a 3-inch wooden box and handed it to Ishuehan. Ishuehan took the box and looked at Qing Zhu with a puzzled expression. Master, this is... Ishuehan looked at the exquisite box in his hand, not knowing what his master meant. Open it, Qing Zhu said. Yes, Ishuehan said as he slowly opened the lid of the wooden box. Whoosh! The moment the box was opened, a cold blue light burst out of the box, extremely dazzling. It was so dazzling that Ishuehan turned his head, not daring to look directly at it. After the blue light burst out, it circled around Ishuen's right 3 times, then returned to the box, and the light gradually faded. Ishuehan then tried to look at the box in his hand. A bell with a faint blue light was quietly lying in the box. The bell was simple and blue in design. This is... Ishuehan was completely confused. He did not understand why his master would give him a bell. Try to pick it up, Qing Zhu said again. Yes, master, Ishuehan said as he reached into the box and took the bell in his hand. Buzz! The bell rang loudly. The originally quiet bell suddenly vibrated violently in Ishuen's hand. The sound was extremely crisp. At the same time, the blue light shone brightly, and countless blue lights shot out from between Ishuen's fingers. Ishuehan was completely stunned. It's really you, Qing Zhu said after seeing this scene. Master, Ishuehan looked at the bell in his hand and asked, what the hell is going on? Chapter 402. Blue Bell, Liang State's Cauldron? Ishuehan did not understand what his master was talking about. Do you know about the 9 cauldrons? Qing Zhu asked Ishuehan. 9 cauldrons? Ishuehan looked up and asked Qing Zhu, are you talking about the 9 divine cauldrons that King Yu forged? Qing Zhu nodded. You once told me that the 9 cauldrons were forged using the copper provided by the 9 herds after King Yu divided the world into the 9 prefectures, Ishuehan recalled. That's right, Qing Zhu said. After the 9 cauldrons were forged, they went through the Xia, Shang, and Zhou dynasties. When the king of Qin unified the 6 states, their whereabouts were unknown. Master, you've told me all this before. Ishuehan looked at the bell in his hand and said, but what does this have to do with this bell? At this moment, the bell in his hand had gradually calmed down, and the blue light was slowly retracted into the bell. King Yu forged the 9 cauldrons, and the 9 cauldrons nurtured the 9 bells. Those who have the 9 bells will have the 9 spirits. Qing Zhu looked at Ishuehan as she spoke. The bell in your hand is the blue bell formed by the true spirit of the Liang State's Cauldron. Liang State's Cauldron, blue bell? Ishuehan looked at the bell in his hand, which was glowing with a faint blue light, and muttered to himself. Those who obtain the 9 cauldrons obtain the world. This has always been the case since ancient times. Qing Zhu said to Ishuehan, countless greedy and ambitious people have died in order to obtain the 9 cauldrons and unify the world. In order to prevent the 9 cauldrons from falling into the hands of evil people, the 9 bells will automatically choose their owner. The person who obtains the 9 bells will become the guardian of the inscriptions inside the 9 cauldrons. From now on, you are the bell keeper of the Liang State's cauldrons. Bell keeper? Ishuehan was confused. Why me? As I said, this is the 9 bells choice. No one else will know, Qing Zhu said. You saw it just now, Blue Bell has chosen you. Buzz! The bell in Ishuehan's hand rang, as if confirming Qing Zhu's answer. Protect the inscriptions inside Liang State's cauldron? Ishuehan asked Qing Zhu. Qing Zhu told Ishuehan everything about the 9 cauldrons. After hearing this, Ishuehan's expression turned solemn. After saying that, Qing Zhu pulled out a roll of bamboo slips from his sleeve and handed it to Ishuehan. This star-picking art was taught to me by Immortal Buhua when he accepted me as his disciple. Today, I will teach it to you. Study it well and practice diligently. Ishuehan knelt on the ground and took the bamboo slips with both hands. I'll give you another sword to help you face your enemies. After saying that, Qingzhu waved his hand and a sword appeared out of thin air. The treasured sword was over 3 feet long. Its entire body was glossy and emerald green without any impurities. Green light lingered around it. A piece of green bamboo leaf was tied to the hilt of the sword, looking very green. This green bamboo sword was also given to me by your grandmaster when he accepted me as his disciple. Today, I will give it to you as well. As Qingzhu said that, the treasured sword slowly flew in front of Ishuehan. Ishuehan took the treasured sword with both hands and was shocked to find that the green bamboo sword lived up to its name. It was completely made of green bamboo. A bamboo sword? How can I use this? Won't I be sliced in half by the enemy? Ishuehan muttered in his heart. Don't underestimate this green bamboo sword. Qingzhu seemed to have seen through Ishuehan's thoughts and said with a smile, although this sword is made of bamboo, it is an immortal item. Your grandmaster used the immortal bamboo in Iridescent Cloud's palace to refine it. This sword can be big or small and has endless uses. You will naturally understand when the time comes. I will remember, Ishuehan said with a red face. Qingzhu knew exactly what he was thinking. She knew exactly what he was thinking. Get up, Qingzhu said. Ishuehan got up. You are gifted and have the favor of the bluebell. It is really rare, Qingzhu said to Ishuehan earnestly. The inscription of the Guardian Cauldron is a great merit. As the Guardian Cauldron, you must not let the inscription of the Guardian Cauldron fall into the hands of people with evil intentions. Remember, remember. Qingzhu said, remember, twice in a row. It was enough to show the importance of this matter. Ishuehan looked at the blue bell in his hand and nodded heavily. I understand, Ishuehan replied. Qingzhu nodded and then suddenly disappeared. Ishuehan opened his eyes. Like last time, his master met him in a dream. He turned his head to look at the pillow. The bamboo slips, bamboo sword, and the wooden box with the blue bell were sitting there quietly. Since then, Ishuehan began to cut off meat and fish. At home, he concentrated on cultivating the original mind-cleansing manual and the star-picking incantation. He was talented and intelligent, and his cultivation progressed rapidly. A year later, Ishuehan's face was thin, but his spirit was very good. His eyes were bright and full of spirit. At night, his vision could see 100 feet. 2 years later, his hair and beard were blue, and white hair grew all over his body. From afar, he looked like a white ape. This image immediately caused the people in the town to criticize him. They pointed at him and gossiped behind his back. Chapter 4:03. 3 years later, all the white hair on Ishuehan's body fell off, and he returned to his original appearance. At this time, his bones and blood were completely different from before he practiced the cultivation technique. It was not an exaggeration to say that he had been reborn. What was even more amazing was that the pupils in his eyes were completely different from those of ordinary people. Ordinary people only had one pupil in their eyes, but he had 2 pupils in his eyes. One was black, and the other was cyan. Seeing his son return to his original appearance, Cyan was very happy and persuaded Ishuehan to move back. Ishuehan faintly smiled and told his father that he was already used to the free life in the mountains and would not be used to it if he moved back. Cyan did not agree. As the saying goes, there are 3 ways to be unfilial, and having no descendants is the worst. His son was already 21 years old, and it was time for him to start a family. He only had this one son, and it was not right for him to live in the mountains all day long. Going back to marry and have children was the right thing to do. Seeing that his father insisted on him going back, Ishuehan sighed and agreed to his father's request. He followed his father down the mountain. On the way down the mountain, Ishuehan did not say a word and was silent. He only cared about walking with his head down. His father, Cyan, thought that his son was still unwilling to leave the life in the mountains and did not take it to heart. After they went down the mountain, The father and son sat in the two palanquins that were already waiting at the foot of the mountain and rushed back. Exin was careful. He was afraid that his son would run away halfway, so he had Ishuehan sit in the front palanquin while he sat in the back palanquin and followed far behind. The Yi residence was not far from here. In less than an hour, the two palanquins arrived at the entrance of the residence, one after the other. Ishuehan's mother, who had been waiting at the entrance for a long time, was overjoyed when she saw the two palanquins come back. After the two palanquins landed, she happily called out Ishuehan's childhood name and walked over. She lifted the curtain in front of the palanquin and almost fainted when she saw the scene in front of her. The person in the palanquin was not her precious son that she yearned for day and night, but a large green rock covered in moss. There was a letter on the blue stone. Exin, who came later, was also stunned by this scene. He knew that his son had learned a lot of Tao techniques since he became Green Bamboo Taoist disciple, but he didn't expect him to have reached such a level. After dismissing the servants, Exin opened the letter. In the letter, Ishuehan told his father that he had a heavenly mandate and couldn't stay by his parents' side all the time. After he completed his heavenly mandate, he would come back and ask for forgiveness from his parents. As soon as Exin finished reading, the letter in his hand burst into flames and vanished into thin air. Exin was stunned on the spot. Looking at the ashes that had turned into ashes, he sighed and turned to enter the house. 3 years later, a mysterious sect called the Tsing Yi Society rose rapidly in the Jianghu. All the members of the sect wore green robes and green hats. The reason why the Tsing Yi Society was said to be mysterious was because the people in this sect were all gifted with special abilities. The leader of the Tsing Yi Society was none other than Ishuehan, who left home 3 years ago. I didn't expect Ishuehan to have such a miraculous encounter. After listening to Cui Zuan talk about the Tsing Yi Society, Yi Fan said with emotion. Yi Fan wasn't the only one with a complicated background. In the three realms, you're not the only one with a complicated background. Cui Zuan took a sip of tea and stood up from the green dragon chair. Let's not talk too much. I'll now teach you the cloud riding technique and the inner alchemy technique. After 2 hours, Yi Fan wearing a white jade mask and Cui Zuan wearing a black robe with golden silk slowly walked down the stairs. Akatsuki, who was waiting downstairs, immediately stood up. Brother Cui, please stay. I'll take my leave now. Yi Fan stopped and said goodbye to Cui Zuan. Little brother, you must take care of yourself this time. You must be very careful. Cui Zuan earnestly said to Yi Fan. Yi Fan nodded and turned to Akatsuki. Let's go, Yi Fan said. Okay. Akatsuki nodded at Cui Zuan and followed Yi Fan out of the Dojin Palace. Are we going back now? Akatsuki asked Yi Fan on the street. We still need to go somewhere, Yi Fan said quietly as he walked. Where are we going? Eagle's Distress Peak, Yi Fan replied. Akatsuki frowned. Eagle's Distress Peak, where the Yi clan's ancestral mansion was located, where Yi Ming lived. These were all things she had heard from other experts. During the battle at the Yi clan's ancestral mansion, Yi Fan defeated Hattori Chiyo, an expert in human strength tactics. Yi Fan's father, Yi Kong, used his ethereal sword technique to cut off the arm of the Tsueming Hall's grand guardian, Chiao. And Yi Ming, who was at the top of the Eagle's Distress Peak, defeated Kuju Junichiro, one of Xie Tian's 9 demons, in one move. At this time, the Yi clan's ancestral mansion was empty. There was only one reason why Yi Fan went to the top of the Eagle's Distress Peak. Chapter 404. The intelligent Akatsuki immediately guessed the purpose of Yi Fan's visit. Cui Zuan, Yi Ming. These two people could be said to be completely unrelated, but they had one thing in common. That was, their cultivation levels were extremely high and were extremely rare in the world. Yi Fan must be looking for them because he wanted to find the 9 cauldrons. Akatsuki thought to herself. Yi Fan brought Akatsuki directly to a remote and empty area. Akatsuki had a puzzled expression on her face. At this moment, there were no clouds in the sky, for thousands of kilometers, so there was no way to hide their figures. However, Yifan didn't seem to care about this at all. Yifan stopped and turned around to speak to Akatsuki. "We're going to be on our way. Hold on tight to me." Akatsuki was momentarily stunned. When they set off from the warship, Yifan had taken her along the cloud path. When they flew up from the ground, Yifan didn't ask her to hold on tight to him, and he directly soared into the sky. Furthermore, she was already used to walking on the cloud path, so she didn't need Yifan's help anymore. What was going on with Yifan? Why did he ask her to hold on tight to him? Akatsuki didn't understand Yifan's intentions. However, even so, she still reached out to hold on to Yifan's arm. She didn't know why, but she really liked holding on to Yifan's arm. Yifan closed his eyes and silently recited the cloud-soaring immortal technique that Shui Zuan had just imparted to him. Whoosh! As Yifan recited the technique in his heart, clouds suddenly appeared beneath their feet. After reciting the immortal technique, Yifan suddenly opened his eyes and shouted, "Rise!" Whoosh! A large cloud of clouds instantly lifted the two of them up slowly, and they floated into the sky. This scene immediately shocked Akatsuki, who was standing on the clouds. It was obvious that Yifan wasn't using spiritual energy this time, but a real spell technique. This was the legendary cloud-soaring immortal technique. Yifan's heart was also filled with curiosity. Now he could also ride the clouds. The reason why he asked Akatsuki to hold on to him was because he was afraid that Akatsuki would fall from the clouds. After all, this was his first time riding a cloud. The clouds soon brought the two of them high up in the sky. Once again, Yifan chanted the incantation and used the cloud summoning technique to double the speed of the cloud. The mountains, rivers, and cities under his feet were indistinct, flashing by like flowing water. Cloud soaring immortal technique. Yifan's heart's heart. He was to be able to reach his immortal technique without using spiritual energy. The immortal technique. Cloud soaring immortal technique. Cloud immortal technique. The controlling cloud technique was like the wind and lightning. The stopping cloud technique was as steady as Mount Tai, and the collecting cloud technique dispersed the clouds. Everything was as Shui Zuan had said. The cloud riding technique was extremely convenient, and to a certain extent, it could completely replace movement techniques. Akatsuki watched as Yifan continuously tested the cloud riding technique. She immediately guessed what was going on. It was obvious that the cloud riding technique was taught to Yifan by Shui Zuan of the swimming hall. While she was amazed by the mystical Chinese Taoist techniques, she was even more amazed by Yifan's aptitude. It only took Yifan 2 hours to follow Shui Zuan upstairs and out the door. To be able to learn the cloud riding technique within 2 hours. Other than Yifan, she couldn't think of anyone else with such extraordinary talent. No wonder he used only 3 days to turn from an ordinary person into a master who defeated Hattori Chiyo. He was indeed worthy of his current name. Yi Bufan, one of Bufan's men. Akatsuki thought to herself, "How is it? Are you used to it?" After Yifan tested the cloud riding technique once, he steadily urged the cloud to fly slowly while asking Akatsuki, who was beside him. "It's all right," Akatsuki said as she released her hand from Yifan's arm. At this moment, Yifan was flying extremely steadily. If she continued to hold Yifan's arm and not let go, it would be impolite. "If you feel cold, you can tell me," Yifan said. The cloud riding technique, which was urged by the immortal technique, was completely different from the sky riding technique, which was performed by spiritual power. When the sky riding technique was performed, the surrounding spiritual power would automatically spread to the surroundings, propelling the body to fly at high speed. The spreading spiritual power would block out a large portion of the cold air. However, the cloud riding technique, which was urged by the immortal technique, was different. This immortal technique did not require any spiritual power. It relied entirely on the cloud beneath one's feet to move. Naturally, there was nothing to block out the cold air. Yifan was worried that Akatsuki would suffer from frostbite if she forced herself to hold on, so he told her this. "I can hold on. You don't need to worry about me. Just continue on your way, Akatsuki said to Yi Fan on the cloud. After hearing this, Yi Fan frowned and lowered his head to look at Akatsuki's hand. Under the strong blow of the bone-piercing cold wind, Akatsuki's slender, jade-like hands were already pale from the cold, without a trace of blood. Seeing this, Yi Fan immediately used his spiritual power to set up a semicircular transparent wall of spiritual power in front of Akatsuki. Buzz. Once the wall of spiritual power was set up, the bone-piercing cold air instantly bypassed Akatsuki. Akatsuki's body immediately warmed up. At the same time, her heart also warmed. You don't need to waste your spiritual power for me, Akatsuki said. I'm fine. Don't force yourself. If you catch a cold, it will be troublesome. Yi Fan turned his head to look at Akatsuki. Akatsuki did not say anything. Yi Fan was showing concern for her, and she enjoyed it very much. The two of them flew through the clouds as fast as lightning. In less than an hour, the silhouette of the eagle-distressed peak appeared in their line of sight. The mountain was towering and precipitous. Its walls were cut to form a peak, and it was thousands of feet high. It was a work of the gods. The peak of the mountain was wrapped in silver and pure white snow. Under the illumination of the sun, it reflected a clear and cold radiance. Halfway up the mountain, a huge and imposing residence stood there, like a coiling dragon or a crouching tiger. Chapter 405. Is that Eagle's Grief Peak? Akatsuki turned to ask Yi Fan. Yes, Yi Fan replied. Looking at the ancestral home beneath his feet, he could not help but feel nostalgic. A year ago, the Yi family was still prosperous and powerful. He was still a rich young master, reading and practicing his swordsmanship when he had nothing to do. He was free and unfettered. But now it was the complete opposite. The Yi clan had been removed from their positions by the imperial court within a year, and they were being hunted down everywhere. Their former glory was no longer there, and he had experienced far too many disasters. Compared to a year ago, the difference between him now and a year ago was like heaven and earth. A year ago, he was free and unrestrained. He was pure and kind, generous and courteous. Normally, he would not even step on an ant. But now, he had evil energy in his body, and he was bloodthirsty by nature. He was vicious and merciless, and he killed people like scything flax. The number of people that died tragically at his hands was no less than a few hundred. Yi Fan could not help but shake his head and smile bitterly. He was like a killing machine now. Sometimes, he did not even know why he had become like this. This was probably his destiny. Yi Fan thought. In the blink of an eye, the two of them were above Eagle's Grief Peak. Yi Fan used the cloud stopping technique to stop the cloud and slowly descended to the top of Eagle's Grief Peak. A middle-aged man stood with his hands behind his back on the top of Eagle's Grief Peak. He looked up at the sky expressionlessly. This man had a face as beautiful as jade. His hair looked like it was cut by a knife. His teeth were like jade, and his eyes were like cold stars. His jade-colored hair ribbon fluttered in the wind. This man was none other than the person at the top of Eagle's Grief Peak, demonic blade Yi Ming. The cloud slowly descended to the top of Eagle's Grief Peak. Yi Fan silently recited the cloud stopping technique, and the cloud under their feet immediately dispersed and disappeared. Greetings, Yi Ancestor. After collecting the cloud, Yi Fan immediately took off his white jade mask and knelt in the snow. He bowed 3 times and kowtowed 9 times to Yi Ming, who was 30 feet away. Yi Ming's seniority was the highest in the Yi clan, so Yi Fan naturally didn't dare to be rude. Akatsuki lowered her head to Yi Ming as a courtesy. At this time, although she looked calm on the outside, her heart was pounding and she was on tenterhooks. The person in front of him was Yi Ming, who had defeated Juju Junichiro of the 9 demons in a single move. She had heard her master Shangu Qingyi say that the 9 demons and 10 guards under Xietian had a high cultivation base and were very strong. It could be said that they were rare in the world. That Juchiro Juju had a cultivation base of 1,000 years and was very strong. The blood chrysanthemum in his hand was very powerful and had never been defeated before. To be able to defeat him in one move, what realm was his cultivation? Akatsuki could not imagine. "What are you doing here?" The expressionless Yi Ming asked calmly. Kneeling in the snow, Yi Fan raised his head and said, replying to Yi Ancestor, "This junior has taken the liberty to come here because I have something to ask of Yi Ancestor. I've already said it the last time at the ancestral home. I've already severed all ties with the Yi family. The matters of the Yi family have nothing to do with me, and I won't interfere anymore." Yi Ming said to Yi Fan indifferently. "Yi Ancestor." Yi Fan lowered his head and said to Yi Ming, "You must have heard that the Yi clan has been removed from power by the imperial court. They have already moved out and exiled to foreign countries. The Yi clan has fallen. So what? What does it have to do with me?" Yi Ming expressionlessly said, "I've already done all I can for the Yi clan and have nothing to do with it. You are a member of the Yi clan, so your request is naturally a matter of the Yi clan. As long as it is a matter of the Yi clan, I will not interfere. The life and death of the Yi clan has nothing to do with me. You should go back." As Yi Ming spoke calmly, he turned around and slowly walked toward the small wooden hut not far away. "Yi Ancestor," Yi Fan immediately called out when he saw Yi Ming turn to leave. "Don't call me Yi Ancestor," Yi Ming said without turning his head. "I'm no longer a member of the Yi clan. No matter what you say, you are Yi Ancestor." "That is a fact," Yi Fan said loudly. "Whatever you say," Yi Ming calmly said as he arrived in front of the wooden hut. Creak. The wooden door opened automatically. After Yi Ming slowly walked in, the wooden door closed automatically. "Yi Ancestor," Yi Fan shouted. "Go back." Yi Ming's voice came from the wooden hut. "If you don't agree, I will kneel and not get up," Yi Fan said. "Then kneel," Yi Ming calmly said from inside the wooden hut. Yi Fan didn't say anything else and quietly knelt there. Whoosh. Baihu, who had been staying in the hat all this time, suddenly jumped out. It stretched out its front paws and lowered its head, landing directly on the bone-chilling, snowy ground beside Yi Fan. It didn't know why Yi Fan was begging Yi Ming. It only wanted to help Yi Fan. Yu Hongji furrowed her brows. She didn't expect there to be such a deep rift between Yi Ming and the Yi clan. Looking at the man and fox kneeling in the snow, Akatsuki was a little troubled. She wanted to help Yi Fan, but she didn't know how to help. After all, this was an internal matter of the Yi clan. As an outsider, it wasn't appropriate for her to interfere. All she could do was stay here and accompany them. Chapter 406. Baihu was stunned. It didn't know what happened. It turned its head to look at Yi Fan, who was kneeling in the snow, thinking that Yi Fan was stopping it. However, from Yi Fan's shocked gaze, it didn't seem like Yi Fan was the one who did it. Whoosh! While Baihu was stunned, the floating Baihu immediately flew into Akatsuki's arms. This scene made Akatsuki, who was holding Baihu, stunned. It didn't understand what happened. "You are Tian Kanzi's disciple. You don't have to kneel to me." In the wooden house, Yi Ming's clear voice sounded again. Akatsuki suddenly realized that it was Yi Ming who sent Baihu into its arms. Woo! Baihu, who was in Akatsuki's arms, sobbed as it looked at Yi Fan. It wanted to help, but it couldn't. Yi Fan, who was in the snow, didn't move. It knelt for a long time. It knelt for an hour. During this time, no one said a word. "Say, Senior." Seeing that Yi Ming had closed the door and refused to see him, Yu Hongji, who was at the side, felt sorry for Yi Fan. She couldn't help but speak to Yi Ming, who was in the wooden house. "Please, help him. I didn't ask him to kneel. He wanted to kneel." Yi Ming's voice continued to ring out. "He has his cultivation. This bit of suffering is nothing to him." "But Senior," Akatsuki anxiously said again. Whoosh! Before Akatsuki could finish, an invisible force instantly lifted her off the ground, together with Baihu in her arms, and suddenly floated down the mountain. "Senior, son." Akatsuki's voice was getting farther and farther away. It gradually stopped moving. Yi Fan frowned. He was still kneeling there. He wasn't worried about Akatsuki and Xiao Zhao's safety, because he knew that Yi Ming would never hurt them. Whoosh! In midair, Akatsuki, who was lifted up by the invisible force, fell at a high speed. Seeing this, she didn't dare to delay. She immediately used her body movement, intending to stop her falling body. However, she didn't expect that no matter how she used her body movement, the invisible force that was suppressing her body remained the same. Her body movement was completely ineffective. The wind whistled in her ears. The scenery in front of her eyes flashed like lightning. In the blink of an eye, she and Baihu in her arms had already rushed down a few hundred feet from the top of Eagle's Sorrow Peak. If she didn't slow down, it wouldn't be long before she and Xiao Zhao would crash into the Yi family's ancestral residence halfway up the mountain. The Yi family's ancestral residence was built entirely of granite. Once they crashed into it, their bones would definitely be broken and they would die on the spot. Seeing that her body movement wasn't working, Akatsuki quickly formed hand seals and activated the vital energy in her body. Buzz. As Akatsuki activated the vital energy in her body, a layer of red light appeared around her body. She wanted to break free from the invisible force that was suppressing her body. Compared to the exquisite and complicated methods of channeling vital energy in the Central Plains, the Japanese's method of channeling vital energy had become its own school after borrowing from the Central Plains method of channeling vital energy, simplifying many steps. The Central Plains method of channeling vital energy was mainly to improve one's own level of cultivation. They didn't pay much attention to battle techniques. On the other hand, the Japanese's method of channeling vital energy was the opposite. They didn't have any concept of cultivating immortality. They paid more attention to battle techniques and were particular about effectiveness. This cultural difference could be seen from swordsmanship. The Central Plains swordsmanship had many different styles and styles. Each style was very particular. Ignoring the power of the swordsmanship, one's posture had to be correct and beautiful. Otherwise, it would be embarrassing for their own sect. On the other hand, the Japanese's sword techniques were the complete opposite. They didn't care if the sword technique looked good or not. As long as it could defeat the opponent, they paid attention to the effectiveness of the actual battle. As a master, when imparting sword techniques to their disciples, they never paid attention to whether the sword technique looked good or not. Even if they were to correct the disciple's posture, it was to make it easier for the disciple to exert force, strike with the sword, and kill with one strike. Akatsuki's method of channeling vital energy was the same. It paid attention to the effectiveness of the actual battle. Her set of method of channeling vital energy was created by her master, Kyoichi Kamitani, by referring to the various sects' methods of channeling vital energy in the Central Plains. He drew on the strengths of many sects and coupled with hand seals. Not only was it easy to execute, it could also gather a large amount of vital energy in a short period of time. It was extremely powerful. Buzz? Akatsuki's body glowed with a bright red light. The bright red light spread out 3 feet, forming a dazzling red ball of light. After the ball of light appeared, Akatsuki's eyebrows immediately creased. She had already activated 80% of her true chi, but the formless energy that was suppressing her body did not ease up at all. Such a strong power. Akatsuki thought the power that she was so proud of actually did not have any effect. Could it be that Yi Ming wanted to kill her? Akatsuki's heart suddenly felt a chill. It was very possible. No matter what, Yi Ming was still a member of the Yi family, and she was one of Matsumoto Takayoshi's people. Helping Yi Fan to get rid of her was a very normal thing to do. Thinking about that, Akatsuki clenched her teeth and released all the vital energy in front of her body. What she could do now was to protect herself and Baihu's life to the greatest extent. Buzz, a semicircular red True Chi shield instantly blocked in front of her. The True Chi shield was 5 feet in size. The red light was flowing with brilliant colors. The red light illuminated the beautiful crystal mask on her face. Under the mask, Akatsuki's face was filled with determination. No matter what, she could not die now, and she could not let Baihu die in her arms. Chapter 407. Schwa. In the blink of an eye, Akatsuki hugged Baihu tightly and turned around with her back facing downwards. The formless energy on her body was too strong. It was hard to say if her true chi cover could protect herself, not to mention Baihu, who had no cultivation. It was okay if she was injured, but if Baihu was injured, how would she explain it to Yifan? Akatsuki thought in her heart and hugged Baihu even tighter. Wang. When the glowing red true chi barrier was less than 1 zhang away from the Yi family's ancestral house's bluestone floor, Yu Hongji suddenly increased her true power to 100%. The 5 feet wide, glowing true chi barrier suddenly expanded to more than 1 zhang long and 3 feet thick. Akatsuki closed her eyes and waited for the huge impact. Schwa. Just as the woman and the fox were about to crash into the ground, the formless energy that was suppressing Akatsuki's body suddenly stopped. The woman and the fox stopped 3 chi away from the ground. Whoosh! The dust on the ground was blown away by the strong wind created by the two of them. Inside the true chi cover, Akatsuki, who had her eyes closed, saw that the impact had not arrived and immediately opened her eyes. With one look, she was so shocked that her expression changed greatly. Yiming did not kill her. Akatsuki thought in her heart. Wang. The formless energy that was suppressing her body quickly disappeared. The woman and the fox slowly landed on the ground. Pata! Pata! Baihu, who was in her embrace, licked Akatsuki's hand. Although it was now a fox and could not speak, it knew better than anyone who was good to it. At the critical moment, the Japanese girl in front of it was able to turn around and sacrifice herself to save it. It saw everything and remembered it in its heart. Akatsuki was licked by Baihu's pink tongue and immediately regained her senses. Xiao Zhao, let's wait for him here, Akatsuki said as she stretched out her hand to stroke Baihu's satin fur. Baihu, who was in her embrace, nodded. On the peak of Eagle Sorrow Peak, Yifan was still kneeling in the snow. Senior, please help me, Yifan begged Yiming. I said before, I will not help the Yi family. Leave. Yiming's cold voice came from inside the wooden house. As long as Senior does not agree, Junior will kneel for a day. Yifan begged. If Senior's a year, Junior will kneel for a year until Senior agrees. With your current cultivation, it will be easy for you to kneel for 10 years. Yiming's voice came from the wooden house again. Don't waste your time here. Go back. Yiming's words made Yifan frown. He slowly stood up from the snow and began to take off his white Japanese robe. After taking off his white robe, his hands did not stop moving. He then took off the white robe on his upper body. Apart from the snake shadow sword, the fiery sword, and the 5 elements secret treasures were all placed on the snow beside him. At this moment, his upper body was completely naked. Thump! Yifan knelt in the snow again. Buzz! As Yifan knelt, the 5-colored light around him suddenly flashed. Then, it turned into countless 5-colored light rays that meandered to his chest. To show his sincerity, he returned all his spiritual power to his energy reserve. At this moment, his body was no different from a normal person's. As soon as he withdrew his spiritual power, Yifan instantly felt the bone-piercing cold of the Agony Eagle Peak. The Agony Eagle Peak was thousands of feet tall. The peak was covered in snow all year round. The cold wind was bone-piercing. Not to mention normal people, even experts who had cultivated for many years did not dare to casually climb to the peak. One could imagine how low the temperature was here. As Yifan withdrew his spiritual power to his energy reserve, the bone-piercing cold immediately attacked him. In less than the time it takes to brew a cup of tea, Yifan's eyelashes and beard were covered in a thick layer of white frost. His lips turned purple, his face was pale, and his entire body was trembling. Before he had spiritual power, he could still resist the cold. He had cultivated the cold air of the snake shadow sword. Back then, he had used the cold air of the snake shadow sword to freeze Hattori Kianxio on Mount Qingyan. Logically speaking, even without spiritual power, the cold air of the Agony Eagle Peak should not have been able to do anything to him. The reason was simple. Although he did not have spiritual power back then, he had the vital energy of a normal expert. When he activated the cold air of the snake's shadow sword, he had used vital energy. But now that he had spiritual power, the result was completely different. When Brother Kim had imparted spiritual power to him in the Lingyun cave, the tyrannical spiritual power had already swept away all the vital energy in his body. Not a single drop was left. Now that he had withdrawn his spiritual power, he was even weaker than an ordinary martial arts expert. The cold wind was like a knife, the bone-piercing cold snow, and Yi Fan's naked upper body. The intense cold air began to invade Yi Fan's body. Yi Fan quietly knelt there with his eyes closed. He did not say a word, allowing the cold air to invade his body. Buzz! The snake's shadow sword coiled around Yi Fan's waist suddenly let out a crisp sound. In an instant, it shone with a bright white light. Like a white chain, it flew out of Yi Fan's waist and into the air. After circling in the air, the resplendent snake's shadow sword fell from the sky. Clang! The snake's shadow sword stabbed into a large rock beside Yi Fan. Yi Fan's body was covered in cold air. The snake's shadow sword was eager to protect its master, so it could only leave Yi Fan's body. Otherwise, the cold air it emitted would make Yi Fan's body even worse. Buzz! The distant fire sword suddenly flashed with a red light. With a whoosh, it automatically flew 3 feet above Yi Fan's head. The end of its scabbard pointed at Yi Fan's head as it floated there. Whoosh! A red ring of light slowly emitted from the end of the distant fire sword scabbard. It was like a translucent red bell that enveloped Yi Fan, who was kneeling on the snow. The distant fire sword's spiritual power was not inferior to the snake shadow swords at all. It also began to protect its master. Once the distant fire sword's heat was released, Yi Fan, who was shivering from the cold, suddenly felt a burst of warmth. He opened his eyes and saw the warm red light covering his body. He also saw the distant fire sword floating above his head and emitting heat. Chapter 408. Ever since it saw Yi Fan, the departing fire sword seemed to have recognized Yi Fan as its master. Yi Fan also felt that the departing fire sword had acknowledged him. Back when he fought with Inchan Daxiong for the first time, the departing fire sword's performance had greatly surprised him. The sword's performance in Hattori Chinxiong's hands was completely different from his. After hearing Yi Fan's words, the departing fire sword hovered in the air and continued to release heat. Compared to the cold and calm Frost Dragon sword, the departing fire sword's temper was more explosive. When it saw that its master was being attacked by the cold, it immediately protected him and refused to listen to Yi Fan's advice. If you recognize me as your master, then listen to me. Yi Fan frowned and said to the departing fire sword, "Come down." Buzz! The departing fire sword hummed and withdrew the red halo. Clang! Just like the snake's shadow sword, the unsheathed departing fire sword stabbed into a rock on the other side of Yi Fan. The 2 divine weapons loyally protected their master, one on the left and one on the right, one cold and one hot, one yin and one yang. Yi Fan closed his eyes again. The cold air made a comeback once again. Yi Fan knelt for 2 hours. At this time, the heavens seemed to be testing Yi Fan. It was almost the beginning of summer, but it was snowing heavily. The snowflakes, blown by the wind, mercilessly whipped Yi Fan's thin, naked body. Yi Fan quietly knelt in the snow, like a stone statue. His consciousness was already in a semi-conscious state. At this time, he knelt in the snow with a pale face and numb body. He could not feel anything. If he did not bite the tip of his tongue to maintain consciousness, he might have already fainted. The thick snow had already covered him from the waist down. The biting cold wind blew his snow-like silver hair and made it dance in the air. Inside the wooden hut, Yiming sat on a praying mat with his eyes slightly closed and his brows slightly furrowed. He opened his eyes, got up from his seat, and walked to the wooden door. Creak! The wooden door opened automatically. Yi Ming, who was standing at the entrance with his hands behind his back, looked at the half-naked Yi Fan in the wind and snow, as well as the two divine weapons that were stabbed into the limestone on either side of him. His frown deepened. After a long time, Yi Ming returned to the wooden hut and sat down on the futon again. Why didn't you help him? Inside the wooden hut, a voice identical to Yi Ming's came from the long sword hanging on the wall. This saber was 4 feet long, straight, wedge-shaped, and simple in design. Red light swirled around it. The scabbard had 2 sides. One side was carved with a lifelike, auspicious beast known for its benevolence and righteousness, the Qilin. Its body was surrounded by flowing clouds and flames, while the other side was carved with a ferocious beast Yazi that would seek revenge for any enmity. Its murderous aura was on the verge of bursting out. 2 eyes were carved on both sides of the hilt. One of the eyes was benevolent and kind, shining with golden light, like a true Buddha or Bodhisattva. The other side was the complete opposite. The eyes were blood red, with blood vessels entwined around them. The gaze was sinister and filled with burning resentment, like a demon from hell. 2 great spirit beasts, one benevolent and the other ferocious, with one eye golden and the other red. This saber was the peerless divine weapon that Yi Ming had extracted from his own demonic nature and sealed it within. It was the demonic saber, blood saber, that had severed Kuju Junichiro's blood chrysanthemum. He's a member of the Yi family. I won't help him, Yi Ming said calmly. Although Yi Ming said that, his brows were still tightly knitted. Then you're just going to watch him freeze to death. The voice from the demonic saber sounded again, its tone calm. How can someone at the underworld doesn't accept die? Yi Ming said as he slowly closed his eyes. Actually, you want to help him. You just lack a reason, right? The demonic saber exposed Yi Ming's worries. On the futon, Yi Ming opened his eyes and glanced at the demonic saber hanging on the wall. You want to help him, but you don't want to go against your oath, the demonic saber continued. Believe it or not, I'll break you if you talk any more nonsense, Yi Ming said coldly. The demonic saber hanging on the wall didn't speak and didn't move. Yi Ming closed his eyes again and thought hard. The demonic saber wasn't wrong. He needed a reason that didn't contradict his oath. Buzz. Just as he was deep in thought, a crisp bell rang from outside the wooden house. This ringtone gave Yi Ming, who had been racking his brains, a flash of inspiration. He opened his eyes, got up from his seat again, and went directly to the door of the wooden house. Outside the wooden house, the snow piled up to Yi Fan's chest. In the wind and snow, his body was frozen stiff with his eyes closed, and his breathing was weak. If it weren't for the spiritual energy in his energy reserve and the support of his 2 inner cores, he would have died long ago. Now, his consciousness was on the verge of dissipating. He was in a daze, as if he was in a dream. In the beginning, he could still bite the tip of his tongue to stay awake, but later on his body was frozen stiff and the tip of his tongue was bleeding. He didn't even realize it. In the end, even his teeth were completely numb from the cold, and he couldn't move at all. Chapter 409. At the entrance of the wooden hut, a frowning Yi Ming saw that Yi Fan was barely breathing and immediately waved his sleeves. Whoosh! Yi Ming waved his sleeves, causing a strong gust of wind to blow away all the snow on the Eagle Distress Peak, including the pile of snow around Yi Fan. Thump! Once the pile of snow around him was removed, the topless Yi Fan immediately lost his support and fell heavily to the ground. At this time, he was completely frozen, so much so that his body was still in a kneeling position after falling to the ground. Yi Ming flipped his palm and raised it in the air. Yi Fan immediately stood up and slowly floated into the air. At the same time, Yi Fan's bent knees also began to straighten. Yi Ming gently flipped his palm and slowly lowered it. Yi Fan, who was floating in the air, began to turn around and lie horizontally. Yi Ming's hand gesture slowly landed on the ground. After Yi Fan landed, Yi Ming slowly walked up to him and lowered his head to look at the unconscious Yi Fan, who was lying on the ground with his eyes tightly shut. The last time the Yi clan was in trouble, the white-robed heavenly dragon, who had been worshipped by the Yi clan for generations and held an important position in the heavenly court, personally came to the Eagle Distress Peak to ask for his help. However, this young man in front of him only needed to say a few words to convince him to lend a hand and save the Yi clan. This young man was loyal, courteous, and would never turn back once he set his mind on something. He was somewhat similar to the white-robed heavenly dragon's temperament in the past. Li Hua, wake him up, Yi Ming calmly said to the Li Hua sword that was stabbed into the boulder beside him. Clang! After hearing Yi Ming's words, the Li Hua sword let out a crisp ring and instantly flew up from the boulder. It quickly flew to a spot 3 feet above Yi Fan and hovered there. Whoosh! The halo appeared once again, and the brilliant red light barrier once again enveloped Yi Fan, who was lying flat on the ground. Buzz, buzz, buzz. The red light barrier flickered frequently, constantly neutralizing the cold energy that was invading Yi Fan's body. Within the red light barrier, the silver-haired Yi Fan was lying there quietly. White smoke was rising from his body. The cold air in his body was forced out by the heat emitted by the departing fire sword. After 10 minutes, Yi Fan's fingers reacted and began to move gently. He gradually regained consciousness. After half an incense stick of time, Yi Fan slowly opened his eyes. When the expressionless Yi Ming entered his sight, Yi Fan suddenly sat up and knelt in front of Yi Ming. Senior, Yi Fan kowtowed to the ground. Please help me, Senior. Put on your clothes and come in with me, Yi Ming said calmly as he turned around and walked into the cabin. Yi Ming's words made Yi Fan overjoyed. He agreed to help him. The excited Yi Fan quickly put on his clothes as he circulated the spirit energy in his sea of energy through his body. Once the spirit energy returned, Yi Fan's body quickly recovered. Whoosh! When the snake shadow sword saw that Yi Fan had fully recovered, it immediately flew up from the huge rock and automatically coiled around Yi Fan's waist. Buzz! The departing fire sword that was hovering above Yi Fan's head slowly descended and returned to Yi Fan's white robe. The two divine weapons had already gained intelligence and naturally understood what their master was thinking. After Yi Fan tidied up everything, he quickly walked into the small cabin not far away. The cabin was not big. It was less than 20 feet wide. The furnishings inside could be described as negligible. There was a simple wooden table, an oil lamp in the shape of a lotus flower, a wide cushion, a bookshelf full of ancient books, and a long saber that was wrapped in red light hanging on the wall. That was all. Other than that, there was nothing else. There was no tea set, no bed, and not even a drop of water. If Matsumoto Takayoshi's cabin was simple, then Yi Ming's cabin could be called a poor home. At that moment, Yi Ming was sitting on the cushion expressionlessly. Yi ancestor. Yi Fan shook his sleeves and knelt in front of Yi Ming. I told you not to call me Yi ancestor. Yi Ming looked at Yi Fan and said, just call me Senior. Yes, Senior. Yi Fan lowered his head and answered, you are a member of the Yi clan. I shouldn't have saved you, but you are the reincarnation of Eldritch. Like me, you are also a keeper of the 9 cauldrons. I made an exception because of these 2 reasons. I can help you with these 2 identities. If you beg me again as a member of the Yi clan, I will immediately kick you out. Do you understand? Yi Ming said to Yi Fan. Yes. Yi Fan nodded and answered. Get up, Yi Ming said. Yi Fan stood up and stood with his hands by his side. I already know why you are here. It is not that easy to obtain the power of an immortal. Yi Ming went straight to the point. I do have the power to break the 9 cauldrons barrier, but I cannot teach you. Why? Yi Fan was shocked when he heard that. I presume Yi Yun has already told you about me? Yi Ming looked calmly at Yi Fan and asked. Yi Fan nodded. Chapter 410. I'm willing to listen to Senior's advice, Yi Fan said respectfully. All living things in the world are a combination of God and devil. Yi Ming stared at Yi Fan and said something that Yi Fan could not understand. God. God and devil is one? Yi Fan asked in surprise. It was the first time he heard this term. God is divinity, and devil is devil. All living things have these two natures in their nature, just like the yin and yang mentioned in Taoism. There is yang and yin and yang. Yi Ming explained, "Let me ask you, is there an absolutely good person in the world who has no evil thoughts?" Yi Ming's question made Yi Fan frown and fall into deep thought. After a long time, he shook his head. There were good people in the world, but it was impossible to say that there was no one without evil thoughts. This had nothing to do with personality, it was instinct. Let me ask you again, is there an absolutely evil person in the world who has no good thoughts? Yi Ming continued to ask. Yi Fan shook his head again. Like the previous question, there was no one who was 100% evil in the world. It was said that people were born good, and even the most evil person would have a trace of good thoughts. Pure yang is an immortal, and pure yin is a ghost. Yin and yang are easy to separate, but God and devil are difficult to separate. Yi Ming said, "A good person is a good person, not because he has no evil thoughts, but because he uses good thoughts to suppress evil thoughts. A bad person is a bad person, not because he has no good thoughts, but because his evil thoughts suppress his good thoughts." Not to mention humans. Even some cultivators who have achieved the Tao will make a grave mistake because they haven't completely removed their devil nature and will be sent into the cycle of reincarnation again. This is the combination of God and devil. You can imagine how difficult it is to separate the two. Yi Fan nodded slightly as he understood what was going on. The celestial being and the devil are originally one. If they are separated, they will become one celestial being and one devil being. The celestial being is the celestial being, and the devil being is the devil being. The cultivation of these two celestial beings has reached the peak of perfection. The power of the yin-yang immortal is nothing to them. Yi Ming said, "Senior," Yi Fan asked in confusion, "just now you said that you couldn't teach me. Why is that?" Using the method of splitting gods and devils into two to obtain supreme power is a shortcut. However, there are layers upon layers of obstacles and dangers at every step. It completely depends on one's own comprehension ability. It's not that I can't teach you. It's that I'm unable to teach you. The moment I open my mouth, it's wrong," Yi Ming said slowly. "Senior, can I take this path?" Yi Fan asked. Yi Ming shook his head. "Why?" Yi Fan asked with a frown. Taoism emphasizes tranquility and inaction, conforming to the heavenly Tao. Buddhism emphasizes that the four elements are all empty and that good and evil are all banished. The purpose is to transform the devil into the Tao and the devil into the Buddha, hoping that the righteous path will return to the truth and become a Buddha on the spot. Although the progress of these two methods is slow, they are orthodox methods of cultivation. Now that your devil nature has appeared and invaded your beer, you can still do so under the suppression of the three seals. If you blindly practice the method of separating gods and devils, your devil nature may break through the three seals and completely occupy your beer. When that happens, not only will you not be able to save your wife, I'm afraid that the world will be plunged into misery and suffering again. Yi Fan remained silent. Cui Zhuan of the swimming hall and Yi Zhu of the Eagle Sorrow Peak had high cultivation, but they couldn't teach him the power of immortals. What should he do? You don't have to worry too much about it. As the saying goes, everything is predestined by the heavens. Yi Ming seemed to have seen through Yi Fan's thoughts. He said, "Be content with what you have, and know when to do and when not to do. Some things are not meant to be, so don't force it. Otherwise, it will backfire. You should know that it's a blessing in disguise." "Senior, what should I do?" Yi Fan asked Yi Ming earnestly. "The river and the sky are the same, without a speck of dust. The bright moon in the sky is like a wheel," Yi Ming said calmly. "Don't you like to watch Mingyu? Go back and admire the moon. Perhaps it will help you." "Admire the moon?" Yi Fan looked suspicious. "This is a heavenly secret. There's no point in talking about it. I don't want to end up like Qin Chenzi," Yi Ming said. "A heavenly secret? Yi Ming's words puzzled Yi Fan. Admiring the moon is considered a heavenly secret? You came here because of fate. Since you sincerely begged me, I'll tell you a secret and teach you 6 words. At least you didn't return empty-handed, Yi Ming said to Yi Fan. I'm willing to listen to senior's teachings. Yi Fan was stunned at first, then bowed to Yi Ming. In this world, Yi Fan was probably the only one who could receive guidance from Yi Ming. The yew in the bamboo forest was not evil, Yi Ming said. Yi Ming's words shocked Yi Fan so much that he was instantly dumbfounded and stunned on the spot. The other him in his body was not evil. This was something he never expected. How was this possible? Yi Fan's eyes widened as if he could not believe it. That day, when the imperial court confiscated his property, he was controlled by his other self because of anger. Not only did he kill that shameless official cruelly, he even drew his sword on his father, Yi Kong, and his beloved wife, Fujiwara no Chiko. If Han Long hadn't appeared and trapped his other self, his father and wife would have been killed. Yi Ming actually said that such a cruel and merciless person wasn't evil. However, Yi Fan thought about it. Yi Ming's words did make sense. During the battle with the blue-robed man, Sato Kawa Akane, if his other self hadn't helped, Yi Feishue would have been sullied and he would have died. He had thought that his other self had attacked repeatedly to protect his physical body so that he could seize the consciousness of his beer one day. Now it seemed that it wasn't that simple. Chapter 411. I'll pass on 6 more words to you, Yi Ming said to Yi Fan, who was still in a daze. If you're disturbed by your inner demons in the future, these 6 words might be able to help you. Please enlighten me, Senior, Yi Fan said respectfully. You are you. A devil is a devil. Yi Ming, who was sitting upright on the praying mat, spat out these words. I am me, and demons are demons. Yi Fan repeated these words over and over again. I've said all that needs to be said, Yi Ming said as he slowly closed his eyes. You can leave now. Yi Fan's knees went weak, and he knelt on the ground. Thank you for your guidance, Senior. I'll take my leave now. Yi Fan kowtowed to the ground. Yi Ming closed his eyes and did not reply. Yi Fan got up and respectfully left the wooden house. He gently closed the door and then used his movement technique to slowly float down from the top of the Eagle's Sorrow Peak toward the Yi clan's ancestral residence halfway up the mountain, Maoshan Ancestral Court. Night. Lu Yuanshan, dressed in a golden Taoist robe, sat cross-legged on a futon in the practice room with his eyes closed. After returning from the Sisui River, he locked himself in the practice room for 3 days in a row. He only ordered his trusted disciples to send food to the door at regular times and did not allow anyone to disturb him without his permission. The battle at the Sisui River was a great humiliation to him. The Maoshan sect leader was defeated by a Yin ghost. It was the biggest joke in the world. Lu Yuanshan, who was sitting on the futon, gritted his teeth when he thought of this. If he had not diligently cultivated the Maoshan sect's soul-shattering palm to the 3rd level, how could the Yin soul of the Myriad Immortals Tower be his opponent? There was always someone better than him. He, who had never been defeated, now felt his lack of strength. In the 3 days after returning, he kept reading the Maoshan sect's secret manuals in the practice room, hoping to find a shocking technique that could be mastered quickly. But in the end, he found nothing. There were indeed quite a number of overbearing spells recorded in the secret manuals of Maoshan, but there was no mention of a quick way to learn them. That was because the Maoshan sect spells were a branch of Taoism, and they practiced orthodox methods. Orthodox methods had one thing in common, and that was slow progress. There was no obvious effect in a short period of time. In addition, the orthodox cultivation method also required the cultivator to have a clear heart and have no desires. If one's desires were blazing and they were greedy to advance rashly, it would inevitably lead to chi deviation, and all efforts would be for naught. The Maoshan sect had 4 treasures: the Supreme Secret Book, the Secrets of Truth Ascension, the 9 Immortals Seal, the Demon Slaying Sword, and Lu Ji's self-created unique skill, the Soul-Shattering Palm. However, although he had an artifact in hand, Lu Yuanshan was not happy. The secrets of truth ascension was exquisite and obscure. He had studied it many times over the past decade, but he had never been able to make sense of it. The Nine Immortal Seal was the treasure of the Maoshan sect, and it had always been enshrined in the main hall and was not to be used lightly. Even the Maoshan sect leader had to go through a discussion with the elders of the Maoshan sect if he wanted to use the seal. The demon-slaying sword was full of righteousness, capable of driving away ghosts and evil. Its power was astonishing, and it was the personal sword of the Maoshan sect leaders. However, Lu Yuanshan rarely used the sword. Aside from some more important occasions, the sword had always been kept in the library tower. It wasn't that he didn't want to wear this sword, but every time he carried this sword by his side, he always vaguely felt an indescribable discomfort all over his body. Furthermore, he had already mastered the Maoshan sect's spells to the point of perfection, and he had no use for any weapons, so he did not carry the sword with him. As for the soul-shattering palm, he had never been able to surpass the 4th level of the soul-shattering palm. Every time he reached a bottleneck, he would feel hot and cold, and his heart would become restless. If it were not for his excellent talent, he would have already gone mad. Among the 4 treasures, none of them were to his liking. Lu Yuanshan was a little angry. Sitting on the futon with his eyes closed, he could not help but feel annoyed. His eyes suddenly opened, and he slammed his palm on the stone wall opposite him. Boom! The stone wall was bombarded by Lu Yuanshan's fierce palm technique, and in an instant, it shattered into pieces. The 1-foot-thick bluestone wall was forcibly torn open, leaving behind a 3-foot-wide hole. Through the hole, a tall armored zombie with a yellow talisman on its head quietly leaned against the wall. Sitting on the futon, Lu Yuanshan saw this scene and frowned. Then, as if he understood something, he immediately stood up from the futon and bent down to enter the stone room. Inside the stone room, 7 zombies of different shapes were reflected in Lu Yuanshan's eyes. These 7 zombies had yellow talismans on their heads. Their faces were pitch black, and their fingers were sharp. Evil chi surrounded their bodies, and they were either standing or lying motionless on the ground. On the walls of the stone room, there were huge corpse-subduing talismans used to deter the zombies and prevent them from mutating. The corpse-subduing talismans were repeatedly drawn with cinnabar, dark red like blood. On the ceiling of the stone room, there was a huge Taiji 8 trigrams carved on it. On the floor of the stone room, there were all kinds of yellow talisman papers. The stone room was full of yin qi, the talisman was full of yang qi, and the zombies were full of evil qi. Chapter 412. Common zombies were usually dealt with by burning them to the ground. However, the Maoshan sect had specifically placed the zombies that had already matured. The reason for that was simple. Those zombies had been cultivating for years, absorbing the extreme yin aura of the world. Corpse cores had already formed within their bodies, which was something rarely seen in the world. Corpse cores were of extreme yin aura. If common folk were to come into contact with even a tiny bit of them, they would immediately be poisoned and die. While corpse cores were known to be harmful, the Maoshan sect saw them as having other uses. Corpse cores were capable of harming people, but if used properly, they could also be used to remove the poison from the body and heal people. Whenever a large number of zombies were wreaking havoc, the Maoshan sect would send people down the mountain to deal with the zombies. Along with corpse-suppressing power items, they would also bring along corpse cores, which would be used to remove the people being bitten by the zombies. Of course, those who were allowed to bring along corpse cores had to be disciples of the Maoshan sect of high cultivation, and they had to have the permission of the Maoshan sect sectmaster. Disciples of low cultivation were never allowed to bring along corpse cores. The yin aura of the corpse cores was extremely dense. Without reaching a certain level of cultivation, it was very easy for corpse aura to latch onto one's body. If one was not careful, they would be harmed and turned into something that was neither human nor ghost. While corpse cores sounded simple, they were actually extremely hard to come by. It was worth noting that zombies were born from the resentment of dead people. They were soulless, so it was very rare for them to be able to develop their own consciousness, let alone be able to cultivate on their own. Common zombies would have only been able to develop their own consciousness after training for a century. It would have taken them at least 200 to 300 years to develop corpse cores. For immortal zombies, 200 to 300 years would have been nothing more than a snap of a finger. However, it was worth noting that most zombies only had the instinct to bite living things after they were born. They were nothing more than walking corpses with no consciousness at all, and they would have been killed by formidable cultivators before long. The zombies that survived were either buried deep underground, where no one knew where they were, or they were living in the wilderness where no one would go. As such, zombies that were able to live for more than a century were already extremely rare. Zombies that were hundreds or even thousands of years old were even rarer. Aside from using zombie pills to extract zombie toxins and heal people, the Maoshan sect had another purpose for keeping those unusual zombies around: to control zombies. It was common knowledge that after being bitten by a zombie, if the poison was not removed in time, it would not take long for the person to become like a zombie, biting anyone they saw. In this way, the poison would quickly spread and the number of zombies would naturally rise. Sometimes, an entire village would be wiped out by zombies in a single night, and hundreds of villagers would turn into walking corpses in the blink of an eye. The Maoshan sect sent out a large number of their disciples to keep the zombies under control. They also released the zombies that had been locked up in their stone chambers, using the method of controlling zombies to control the masses. Although these zombies were soulless, they still retained their animal instincts. Once they discovered a zombie whose level far exceeded their own, they would worship it as a zombie king. With the zombie king under control, it would be much easier to deal with the remaining zombies. However, controlling zombies required extremely high levels of cultivation. Every time such a method was used, the 8 elders of the Maoshan sect would personally intervene, fearing that the zombie king would cause trouble. The 7 zombies in the stone chambers were rare zombie kings that the Maoshan sect had accumulated over the generations since the sect was founded. Even the youngest of them was over 500 years old. Lu Yuanshan put his hands behind his back and walked around, stepping on yellow talismans. He slowly walked past each of the zombies, taking a good look at the zombie kings before him. Lu Yuanshan's eyes lit up when he walked to a coffin in the corner. The coffin was made entirely of pure copper. It was huge, standing over 9 feet tall, and had 9 thick copper chains wrapped around it. Countless demon-subduing runes were carved on the chains, and they were as red as blood. The copper chains were anything but ordinary. They were demon-sealing chains that had been crafted through over a dozen complicated refinement processes. There were over a dozen demon-subduing runes carved all over the coffin, and they were soaked in cinnabar. Other than that, there was also a 7-inch, 8 trigrams demon-subduing bronze mirror embedded on the lid of the coffin. The bronze mirror was simple and unadorned. It was carved with the 8 trigrams and the Maoshan demon-subduing runes, giving it a righteous aura. A 3-foot-long yellow cloth hung on top of the coffin. The seals of the 9 old deities were carved on the yellow cloth. Bronze coffin, cinnabar runes, demon-subduing bronze mirror, demon-subduing chains, and the seals of the 9 old deities. One could only imagine the level of the zombie king within the coffin if such a complicated secret art was used to subdue the item. According to the records of the Maoshan sect, the zombie king within the coffin was a king of the barbarians during the 3 Kingdoms period. It was said that the king of the barbarians was extremely talented when he was alive. He was born with a body covered in scales that made him invulnerable to weapons. Coupled with his massive build and formidable combat prowess, he quickly became the overlord of the barbarians. The barbarians were adept at sorcery. After the king of the barbarians died of old age, the local god of sorcery cast spells and soaked him in secret medicine, preventing his body from rotting. He was worshipped in the local temple as a god. Chapter 413. Hundreds of years later, Murong Yin, the then leader of the Maoshan sect, found the king of the barbarians in the wilderness. At the time, the king of the barbarians was worshipping the moon at the top of the mountain, absorbing the essence of the moonlight. When Murong Yin saw the withered vegetation and the barbarian king covered in scales, she immediately turned pale with fright. This corpse king was nearly 1,000 years old. If she didn't subdue it and let it continue to cultivate, then perhaps even the Daluo immortal wouldn't be able to do anything to it. Murong Yin discreetly returned to the Maoshan sect. She mobilized 300 Maoshan disciples, armed with the seal of the 9 old deities, the demon-slaying sword, and the assistance of 13 undead kings, and engaged the king of the barbarians in a battle of the undead. The battle lasted for a whole day and night. The king of the barbarians was finally bound by demon-sealing chains at noon, when the yang energy was at its peak. While the battle was a great victory, it also caused the Maoshan sect to pay a heavy price, and their strength was greatly damaged. In the battle, the Maoshan sect lost over 100 disciples with high cultivation, 4 of the 8 elders, and 8 of the 13 undead kings. That was not even counting those who were severely injured. 300 disciples, 8 elders, 9 deities, the seals of the 9 deities, the demon-slaying swords, and 13 undead kings. The fact that the king of the barbarians was able to withstand such a powerful attack for a whole day and night was a testament to its combat prowess. Lu Yuanshan looked at the bronze coffin in front of him with a serious expression. An evil thought flashed through his mind. Whoosh! Lu Yuanshan waved his sleeve, and the seals of the 9 deities that were hanging on top of the bronze coffin immediately rolled up and flew to the side. Roar! As soon as the seals of the 9 deities were removed, a low roar was immediately heard from the bronze coffin. Although the roar was low, it shook one's soul, causing one's heart to palpitate. "Do you want to come out?" Lu Yuanshan asked with a sinister smile. The king of the barbarians in the bronze coffin grunted. "If you want to come out, I can let you out." Lu Yuanshan continued, "But there's a condition." The king of the barbarians seemed rather excited when it heard that Lu Yuanshan was willing to let out. "Give me half of your corpse core, and I'll let you out. What do you think?" Lu Yuanshan's eyes shone as he said to the king of the barbarians in the bronze coffin. Roar! A loud roar was heard from the bronze coffin. Bang! The bronze coffin that weighed several thousand pounds shook violently with a loud noise. Whoosh! The yellow talisman paper around the bronze coffin. Lu Yuanshan's words made the king of the barbarians in the bronze coffin immediately became enraged. This Lu Yuanshan directly asked for half of the corpse core. How could he not be angry? You don't want to? Humph! The barbarians of the bronze coffin of the barbarians 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 of the dead. Roar! The savage corpse king in the copper coffin suddenly roared. Buzz! The giant corpse subduing talisman carved into the copper coffin instantly glowed with a bright red light. Of the crack, the barbarian shas of the barbarians of the dead as the barbarians of the bronze coffin, of the s to the barbarians of the to the barbarians, of the barbarians of the gold, of the barbarian whoosh. Lu Yuanshan flicked his sleeves. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The barbarians of the gold rushed towards the bronze coffin like a storm. Pa, pa, pa. The barbarians of the gold covered the bronze coffin in an instant. The bronze coffin that was covered in red light turned golden. Break! Lu Yuanshan formed a seal with one hand and shouted. Bang, bang, bang. Along with the crisp sound of explosions, the barbarians of the gold lit up in flames. The barbarians of the gold instantly engulfed the bronze coffin and turned it into a sea of fire. Roar! The barbarians of the barbarians of the dead once again let out a deafening roar. Whoosh! The roar instantly extinguished the flames on the copper coffin. What a heavy, killing intent. Lu Yuanshan frowned. Bang! A loud noise came from a lid of the bronze coffin. It was as if something heavy had hit the lid of the coffin. Thump, 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 thump. This loud noise created a shockwave that sent Lu Yuanshan, who was standing in front of the coffin, back 5 steps. What a savage corpse king. Even with so many restrictions on it, it still possesses such strength. If it were to be used by me, wouldn't I be invincible? Lu Yuanshan thought as he stopped himself from retreating. As he regained his balance, he quickly thought of a countermeasure in his mind. You are now inside the bronze coffin. So what if you are invincible? Lu Yuanshan stood up and said to the savage corpse king in the copper coffin, if you give me half of the corpse core and listen to my orders, I can guarantee that you can come out of the coffin right now and give you a living person to eat every 3 days. How about it? There was no movement inside the coffin. It could be seen that the savage corpse king was considering Lu Yuanshan's conditions. Ever since he was locked in the bronze coffin, he had not tasted blood for hundreds of years. Chapter 414. What do you think? My terms are not bad, right? Lu Yuanshan asked after seeing no reaction from the bronze coffin. The savage zombie king let out a muffled sound. Lu Yuanshan frowned. He didn't know what the savage corpse king's voice meant. You agree? Lu Yuanshan raised his eyebrows and asked. I'll take the 8 trigrams mirror off the bronze coffin. If you agree to my terms, you'll give me half of your corpse core, Lu Yuanshan said as he waved his sleeve. Whoosh! The madras of the 9 old immortals that were scattered around immediately flew up and hung on top of the bronze coffin. Lu Yuanshan was no fool. If the madras of the 9 old immortals were so powerful, as soon as the madras were removed, there was no telling if the thing inside would break out of the coffin if he were to take the 8 trigrams corpse suppression mirror off as well. As soon as the madras were hung, the savage zombie king inside the coffin let out a muffled roar. Don't worry, I'll take the 8 trigrams mirror off. Lu Yuanshan said to the savage zombie king as he carefully extended his hand and slowly turned the 8 trigrams corpse suppression mirror at the center of the bronze coffin. As Lu Yuanshan exerted force in his hand, the mirror slowly turned and protruded, leaving the lid of the bronze coffin, revealing a 5-inch bronze ring. Lu Yuanshan reached out and pulled the bronze ring, slowly exerting force. A bronze pillar about half a foot long was slowly pulled out from the lid of the bronze coffin. A 5-inch black hole appeared on the lid of the bronze coffin. That black hole was left behind when the coffin was being cast, and it had 3 functions. First, it was to breathe regularly. Although the copper coffin was half a foot thick, the baleful inchi of the savage corpse king was extremely heavy. In addition, the savage corpse king was soaked in a secret medicine after its death, so its entire body was highly toxic and corrosive. If the air inside the copper coffin was not circulated regularly, the copper coffin would be corroded sooner or later. As such, the 8 trigrams corpse suppression mirror and the bronze pillar had to be taken out every 3 years to allow the air inside to circulate. Second, it was to obtain its corpse core. The reason why the Maoshan sect did not kill it was because of the 1,000-year-old corpse core in its body. That corpse core would not only be able to intimidate zombies, but it would also be able to remove the poison from those bitten by the zombies. By leaving this cave open, they could obtain the corpse core without releasing the corpse king from the copper coffin. But then again, it had been hundreds of years since he had obtained the savage corpse king, and there hadn't been an expert who had been able to extract the inner core from this corpse king. Third, kill or seal the corpse king. The guy inside the copper coffin was definitely not an ordinary corpse king. One had to know that the corpse kings of the desolate land were extremely gifted when they were still alive. They were covered in scales and were impenetrable by swords and spears. They ruled over a region and had an extremely heavy, kingly aura. Furthermore, after his death, he had been refined by the sorcerer god using a secret medicine and had been worshipped by others for many years. His skin and bones were already as tough as copper, and his mouth was as tough as steel. His strength was comparable to that of the ancient corpse king Jiangshun. If it really reached a stage where it could no longer be controlled, then the only way was to kill it or seal it. In comparison, killing him was much more difficult than sealing him. The reason was very simple. This thing had been burned with incense for many years. Its form was that of a corpse, and its spirit was close to that of a demon. Not only did this thing have a consciousness, it also had a cultivation base. Coupled with its impenetrable scales, it could be said to be extremely difficult to completely annihilate it. No matter how powerful an ordinary zombie was, it would not be able to withstand a fiery blaze. But this thing, regardless of whether it was chopping or raging flames, it could not be harmed in the slightest. Even if the demon-subduing demon-slaying sword slashed its body, it would only be able to cut off a few scales. In a few days, it would be restored to its original state, and the scales would be reborn. If one wanted to completely annihilate this thing, there was only one way. That was to attract heavenly lightning to its body and use the might of the lightning to completely shatter its primordial spirit along with its impenetrable body. Other than that, the other method was to seal it. The sealing method was much simpler. Smelt the copper in a copper liquid and pour it into the hole, completely solidifying the copper coffin. Then, engrave the corpse, suppressing mystic talisman on the copper coffin. Then, use the demon locking chains to bind it 9 times and place it into 3 layers of stone coffins. Find a place with blazing yang qi and bury it deep underground. Then, build a temple or pagoda above it to suppress it. Asterisk qi. Asterisk as soon as the copper pillar left the coffin lid, a gust of black qi instantly shot out from the hole in the coffin lid. It was baleful poison qi. Lu Yuanshan had long been prepared. After pulling out the copper pillar, he quickly hid to the side. Asterisk qi. Asterisk the black qi rushed to the stone wall opposite the copper coffin, and countless fine black bubbles immediately appeared on the green stone wall. Asterisk buzz. Asterisk a black light flashed from the hole in the copper coffin, and a semicircular black light bead slowly floated out from the coffin. Corpse core. It was the corpse core. Lu Yuanshan's eyes suddenly lit up. He stretched out his hand towards the black light bead, and suddenly stretched out his hand, his 5 fingers forming a claw. Asterisk schwa. Asterisk the corpse core of a savage zombie king quickly flew into his hand. He spread out his palm and carefully observed the thing in his hand. This thing was as big as a pigeon's egg, and black light lingered around it. A murderous aura rose, and faint traces of blood appeared on it, floating in Lu Yuanshan's palm. Chapter 415. Schwa. Lu Yuanshan directly swallowed the half-corpse core floating in his palm. As the half-corpse core entered his stomach, Lu Yuanshan's body was instantly shrouded in a thick layer of black light. He felt an icy cold qi flowing down his throat and into his lower dantian. Then, he felt a domineering and terrifying power flowing through his 8 extraordinary meridians, limbs, and bones at a rapid speed. Lu Yuanshan roared. His eyes were closed, and his body involuntarily floated up from the ground. Schwa. His legs closed together, and his arms began to fully extend. His 5 fingers spread out. Zap, zap, zap. Countless black lightning constantly intertwined back and forth on his body like a black snake. Lu Yuanshan, who was floating in midair, had his hair and beard fluttering in the wind. Whoosh! The yellow talisman papers on the ground were blown away by the terrifying aura emitted from Lu Yuanshan's body. Power, endless power. Lu Yuanshan personally felt what was called true power. The difference between the power of the soul-shattering palm that he had cultivated before and the power in his body now was like heaven and earth. Schwa. Lu Yuanshan, who was 3 feet above the ground, suddenly opened his eyes. Black eyes. At this time, Lu Yuanshan's eyes no longer had the color of a normal person. There was only one color in his eyes, a thick black. Bang, 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 bang. As soon as Lu Yuanshan opened his eyes, the countless yellow talismans in the air suddenly ignited. One, on the walls of the stone room, the corpse-subduing talismans carved in cinnabar instantly became red. Countless red lights instantly wrapped around Lu Yuanshan, who was floating in the air. Shua! A golden light suddenly rushed out from the 9 old immortals hanging on the bronze coffin and shot straight at Lu Yuanshan's body. Wang! The black light on Lu Yuanshan's body suddenly soared and completely blocked the light from the talismans and seals. At this time, Lu Yuanshan's body was wrapped in black light, like a black flame burning fiercely. Crack! 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 As the black light on Lu Yuanshan's body became more and more intense, the talismans on the stone wall began to crack. Walla! Walla! The 9 old immortals' dermic seal diagram on the bronze coffin began to tremble slightly. When the black flames soared to the sky, Lu Yuanshan, who was 3 feet above the ground, suddenly raised his head and let out a long roar. Boom! 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 A loud sound rang out, and crushed stones flew everywhere, falling like rain. The stone wall engraved with Maoshan Town's corpse talismans collapsed in an instant. That stone chamber was very different from other places in the Maoshan sect. Every single one of them was a king of the dead, and every single one of them was immensely powerful. To prevent the king of the dead from suddenly going out of control, not only were talismans carved all over the walls, but the walls were also filled with glutinous rice paste and iron sand. Even if they were to use gunpowder, it would have taken a very long time just to blast a hole in the walls. However, Lu Yuanshan only needed to let out a long roar to destroy these indestructible stone walls in an instant. Lu Yuanshan grinned as he slowly landed on the ground. What was power? This was power. After landing on the ground, Lu Yuanshan lowered his head and looked at his hands, which were now covered in black fingernails. A satisfied smile appeared on his face. With his current power, even if all of the Taoist masters were to gang up on him, let alone Zhang Xiaoyang of Longhu Mountain and Yu Xingchen of Chuanjin sect, he would not have cared about them at all. Ha ha! Lu Yuanshan threw his head back and laughed. In Seoul, the next time I see you, I'll let you die again and let you have a taste of your own medicine. Ha ha! The savage corpse king let out a muffled roar from within the bronze coffin. It was obvious that he had fulfilled Lu Yuanshan's conditions, and now it was Lu Yuanshan's turn to fulfill his promise. Don't worry. I, Lu Yuanshan, am a man of my word. Since I promised you, I will definitely fulfill my end of the bargain, Lu Yuanshan said as he waved his hand at the bronze coffin. Crack! The 9 demon sealing chains wrapped around the huge bronze coffin were immediately broken. Whoosh! The 9 old immortals' dermic seal diagram was also blown away by Lu Yuanshan's invisible force. You can come out now, Lu Yuanshan said to the bronze coffin with a smile. Buzz! The huge corpse-suppressing talisman engraved on the lid of the bronze coffin began to emit an intense red light. However, at this time, the bronze coffin no longer had the 9 old immortals' dermic seal diagram and the demon sealing chains to suppress it. The corpse-suppressing talisman alone was not of much use. Bang! With a loud bang, the huge bronze coffin lid was instantly separated from the body of the coffin and flew backwards. Boom! The severely deformed bronze coffin lid landed heavily on the bluestone floor 20 feet away, stirring up a cloud of dust. Following that, a tall, naked male corpse with black energy swirling around it appeared in Lu Yuanshan's line of sight. Chapter 416. Lu Yuanshan, who was wearing a golden silk robe, had his hands behind his back and a smile on his face. Ever since the savage corpse king was captured and brought back to Mao Mountain, it had been locked up here. Aside from those who participated in the great battle, no one else had seen the true face of the savage corpse king. Hundreds of years had passed since then, and those who had survived had already left the world. Now, The only one who could see the true face of the Savage Corpse King was Lu Yuanshan. Bang! The Savage Corpse King in the copper coffin heavily stepped out of the coffin with one foot. Chi! The Savage Corpse King stepped on the thick bluestone floor, and black smoke instantly rose up. When the Savage Corpse King lifted his foot, a 3-inch deep black footprint immediately appeared on the bluestone floor. The Savage Corpse King slowly walked out of the copper coffin while letting out a low roar as he walked towards Lu Yuanshan. The Savage Corpse King was 9 feet tall, and his steps were wide. When he walked, the scales all over his body made a rustling sound, which was extremely horrifying. The Savage Corpse King walked a few steps in front of Lu Yuanshan, and behind him there were a few half-foot long black footprints impressively. Black mucus flowed out of his mouth as he lowered his head to look at the person who took away half of his corpse core. Lu Yuanshan smiled as he raised his head to look at the terrifying Savage Corpse King in front of him, without a trace of fear. The Savage Corpse King suddenly roared towards the sky, and the huge roar shook the entire stone room. Lu Yuanshan, with his hands behind his back, curved the corner of his mouth, revealing a trace of disdain and evil smile. Whoosh! It was unknown whether Lu Yuanshan's disdainful smile had angered the Savage Corpse King, or if the Savage Corpse King was still holding a grudge over losing half of his 1,000-year corpse core. After the Savage Corpse King roared loudly, he instantly raised his 5-foot-long thick arm, opened his 5 fingers, and fiercely slapped down towards Lu Yuanshan below. Whoosh! The huge palm had not yet arrived, but the palm wind arrived first. The huge palm covered in scales, and the wind brought about by the huge palm wind instantly blew up Lu Yuanshan's golden silk robe, causing it to flutter loudly. Looking at Lu Yuanshan again, he coldly snorted and suddenly sent out a palm towards the Savage Corpse King's mountain-like attack. Bang! A sky-shaking sound. The palms of one person and one corpse met. Boom! The shockwave dispersed in all directions, and rocks flew everywhere. Lu Yuanshan's body sank half a foot into the ground. However, his palm had already firmly caught the giant palm of the Savage Corpse King. Roar! Seeing that Lu Yuanshan was unharmed, the Savage Corpse King was instantly enraged. Then he raised his thick arms high up in the air again. Wong! The huge palm that the Savage Corpse King had raised into the air instantly burst out with a strong black light. Shwa! A black light flashed, and the Savage Corpse King once again slammed its huge palm down. The Savage Corpse King's goal was very clear: to shatter Lu Yuanshan's body and take back his half of the 1,000-year corpse core. Unfortunately, he was wrong. At this time, there was already half a 1,000-year corpse core in Lu Yuan's body, and the power of the corpse core had already flowed through his 8 extraordinary meridians, limbs, and bones. Both of them had corpse cores in their bodies, so the Savage Corpse King couldn't do anything to Lu Yuanshan. More importantly, although the Savage Corpse King was born with divine strength and had an overwhelming advantage in terms of physique, don't forget that Lu Yuanshan was already a top-notch expert before he had the corpse core. His cultivation wasn't shallow, and he was proficient in Mao Shan Daoist techniques, so the poison of the 1,000-year corpse core didn't have any effect on him. On the other hand, the Savage Corpse King was the exact opposite. Other than his invulnerable body, he relied on his own 1,000-year corpse core. He was suppressed by Mao Shan magic tool for hundreds of years, and in those hundreds of years, he hadn't tasted a drop of blood. This greatly reduced his strength, and with the loss of half a 1,000-year corpse core, the difference between the two was obvious. Shwa! Seeing the Savage Corpse King attack again, Lu Yuanshan narrowed his eyes and suddenly used Mao Shan's secret technique, Soul-Shattering Palm. Before this, his Soul-Shattering Palm couldn't even shake the Savage Corpse King at all. But the current him was very different from the previous him. He wanted to use the power of the 1,000-year inner core to use Mao Shan's secret technique, Soul-Shattering Palm. This Lu Yuanshan was indeed worthy of being called a rare talent with outstanding wisdom. Using the power of extreme yin to activate an extreme yang technique, There was no second person other than him. Buzz. Under the activation of the 1,000-year corpse core, a 6-inch Tai Chi diagram instantly appeared on Lu Yuanshan's palm. The yin and yang fish in the Tai Chi diagram were one gold and one black. The gold yang fish was dazzling and dazzling, while the black yin fish was emitting a strong black light and had a threatening, baleful aura. Lu Yuanshan had actually completely merged the power of yin and yang into one. Pa! A loud sound rang out, and the man and corpse's palms collided once again. Boom! A huge shockwave instantly erupted from the center of the two palms. The savage corpse king only felt a powerful force coming from Lu Yuanshan's hand, and his 1,000-pound body was instantly pushed off the ground by this force, flying upside down. Bang! Dust flew everywhere, and after the savage corpse king flew back 20 feet, he fell heavily onto the ground, smashing a huge human-shaped hole in the limestone ground. You and I both have half a corpse core, and you're no match for me now. You better listen to me obediently. Lu Yuanshan smiled as he withdrew his power into his body. Otherwise, I'll seal you again. To be honest, he was also shocked by his own technique just now. He didn't expect that the 1,000-year corpse core could complement his Maoshan magic without any conflict. This savage corpse king's inner core was indeed not simple. Thinking of this, Lu Yuanshan's face revealed a sinister smile. Chapter 417. Unfortunately, although he could defeat the savage corpse king, he couldn't hurt it at all. This savage corpse king was naturally covered in scales that were invulnerable to swords and spears. After its death, it was refined with a secret method and was several times harder than steel. Back then, when an entire sect fought against it, the Mao Mountain's secret treasure, the demon-subduing, demon-slaying sword, could only cut off a few scales. With his current strength, it was impossible for him to obtain the remaining half of the corpse core in its body. The savage corpse king stood up from the ground and let out a low roar. Although he was furious, he wasn't stupid. When he was at his peak, the Maoshan sect could lock him in this bronze coffin. Now that he had lost half of his inner core, it wouldn't be difficult for the man in front of him to reseal him. At that time, he would lose both his inner core and his freedom. Now, he could only listen to the man in front of him for the time being and wait until he recovered his strength before making a move. Thinking of this, the savage corpse king went directly to Lu Yuanshan and lowered his head to show that he admitted defeat. A wise man submits to circumstances. Lu Yuanshan saw that the savage corpse king had submitted to him and said with a smile, "As long as you listen to me in the future, I, Lu Yuanshan, will not treat you unfairly." The savage corpse king grunted as a reply. Lu Yuanshan smiled and nodded slightly, his heart full of wishful thinking. Now that he had obtained half of the 1,000-year-old corpse core, his cultivation had skyrocketed. His cultivation could be said to be unmatched. The savage corpse king that had made several generations of Maoshan sect leaders helpless had also submitted to him. With his heaven-defying cultivation and the savage corpse king as a helper, his current strength could completely ignore anyone. Bang, bang, bang. Just when Lu Yuanshan was in a good mood, there was a heavy knock on the door outside the secret room. Outside the secret room, Lu Yuanshan's eldest disciple, Dao Xian, anxiously knocked on the door and shouted loudly, "Master! Master!" He had followed Lu Yuanshan for many years and was his favorite disciple. He had been responsible for Lu Yuanshan's meals and daily life. Every time Lu Yuanshan went into seclusion, he was responsible for guarding outside the secret room. Just now, he had gone to the kitchen to prepare tea and snacks for Lu Yuanshan. On the way back, he vaguely heard a series of loud noises coming from inside the lost room. He was worried about Lu Yuanshan's safety. He quickly walked to the door of the secret room and nervously knocked on the door to inquire. Bang, 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 "Master, master." Dao Ming knocked on the stone door and asked loudly, "Are you okay?" "I'm fine." Inside the secret chamber, Lu Yuanshan's clear voice sounded. "Oh." Hearing Lu Yuanshan's voice, Dao Xian finally felt relieved. "Master, I prepared some snacks for you," Dao Xian said to Lu Yuanshan through the thick stone door. "I put at the door. Remember to bring in later." After that, Dao Xian placed the food box at the door and turned to leave. Just as Dao Xian was about to leave, Lu Yuanshan, who was in the stone room, called out to him. "Master, do you have any other orders?" Dao Xian turned around and asked respectfully. "Bring it in." Lu Yuanshan's voice continued. Outside the secret chamber, Dao Xian was extremely excited when he heard that Lu Yuanshan wanted him to bring the food box in. 4 generations, other than the Maoshan sect leader and the 8 elders, there was only one type of person who could enter the secret chamber of Maoshan sect, the Maoshan sect leader candidate. Now that Lu Yuanshan allowed him to enter, how could he not be happy? Lu Yuanshan was still unmarried and had no children. As Lu Yuanshan's eldest disciple, who else could he pass the position of Maoshan sect leader to? Dao Xian was overjoyed. "Yes, master." He suppressed his excited heartbeat and tidied his Taoist robe. Then, he slowly opened the secret chamber's stone door with a respectful expression and walked in. After passing through the long corridor, Dao Xian stopped with the food box in his hand. There were 7 or 8 rooms here. It was his first time here, so he had no idea which room Lu Yuanshan was in. Dao Xian stood there and looked around carefully, trying to find the sect leader, Lu Yuanshan. About 100 feet away from him, the ground was littered with rubble, and a stone room with a large hole in it was shockingly visible. The shattered stones and the scattered yellow talisman papers made him feel that something was wrong. What was in that stone room? Why was it opened? What a heavy Yin energy. Dao Xian frowned. He was the eldest disciple of Maoshan sect, and his cultivation base was very high. In Maoshan sect, apart from the sect leader and the 8 elders, his Taoist techniques were the most exquisite. However, for some reason, he suddenly felt a trace of fear. It was a fear that came from his bones. He did not know why he felt that way. One had to know that normal malicious ghosts and zombies were a piece of cake for him. Chapter 418. Although it was his first time coming to this secret chamber, he knew that this was not only the place where the previous Maoshan sect leaders cultivated, but it was also the place where the 8 corpse kings were kept. He was not the only one. All the disciples of Maoshan, and even the other branches of Taoism, knew that Maoshan had 8 corpse kings, especially the savage corpse king that had cultivated for 1,000 years. Everyone in Jianghu knew that the Maoshan sect had mobilized the entire sect to fight the savage corpse king. Dao Xian calmed himself down and took a deep breath. He recited a few words of the concentration mantra in order to calm his fear. "Master, Master." Dao Xian stood where he was and looked into the room as he called out softly. There was a dead silence in the secret chamber. Apart from his own echo, there was no other voice that answered him. "Where's my master? I heard his voice just now. Why is he so quiet now? Was I hallucinating?" Dao Xian's heart began to pound at that thought. The fear from earlier swept over him again. Whoosh! A yellow talisman appeared between his index and middle fingers. Holding the yellow talisman in his hand, he tiptoed and quietly walked into the stone room inside. Whoosh! Just as Dao Xian was walking toward the depths of the stone chamber, a cold aura blew from the back of his neck. The aura was extremely Yin and cold. Whoosh! Dao Xian, who was on high alert, turned around when he sensed the Yin Qi. He threw the yellow talisman in his hand behind him. Whoosh! The yellow talisman flashed with a golden light as fast as lightning. Smack! The flashing yellow talisman was caught in a person's hand. "Master!" Dao Xian cried out. The person standing behind him was none other than Lu Yuanshan. Lu Yuanshan looked at Dao Xian with a smile and put his hands behind his back. After Lu Yuanshan put his hand behind his back, the yellow talisman that he caught instantly turned black in his hand and turned into ashes. "You're here," Lu Yuanshan said to Dao Xian with a smile. "Master, are you all right?" Dao Xian asked with concern when he saw Lu Yuanshan. "What could happen to me?" Lu Yuanshan said with a smile. Master, this is... Dao Xian looked at the rubble on the ground not far away and asked. Just now, the seal on one of the corpse kings was a little loose. I have already suppressed it again, Lu Yuanshan explained to Dao Xian. The seal has loosened, Dao Xian exclaimed. Lu Yuanshan nodded with a smile. Master, your eyes. Dao Xian suddenly realized that Lu Yuanshan's eyes seemed to be different from before. His eyes were originally clear and transparent, but now they were somewhat turbid and black. When I was fighting with the Corpse King just now, I was struck by some baleful aura. It's no big deal. I'll just need to circulate my qi to adjust it, Lu Yuanshan casually said to Dao Xian. He didn't know that this sentence of his had brought him a fatal disaster. That's good, Dao Xian said as he passed the food box to Lu Yuanshan. Master, here's your supper. Yes. Lu Yuanshan took the food box and said to Dao Xian, Dao Xian, how many years have you been following me? Master, Dao Xian said to Lu Yuanshan, it's been 15 years. When Dao Xian said that to Lu Yuanshan, his brows slightly furrowed. He inadvertently noticed Lu Yuanshan's black and shiny nails. The cold and baleful aura, the turbid and black eyes, and the black and shiny nails. Dao Xian keenly sensed that the extremely strong, baleful aura on Lu Yuanshan's body was not ordinary. Perhaps it was because of the baleful aura when he was fighting with the Corpse King just now, Dao Xian thought. Yes, 15 years. Lu Yuanshan nodded and said, You have been serving me for the past 15 years. It's been hard on you. Master, what are you talking about? Dao Xian hurriedly said, I'm your eldest disciple. It's my duty to serve you. Among all the disciples of Mao Mountain, your cultivation is the highest. In the future, I'll hand over the position of Mao Mountain's chief to you. As the chief of Mao Mountain, you have a great responsibility. Don't let me down. Lu Yuanshan looked at Dao Xian and said with a smile. What Lu Yuanshan said immediately made Dao Xian overjoyed. Everything was as he expected. Lu Yuanshan had already listed him as a backup candidate for the position of Mao Mountain's chief. Thank you, Master. Dao Xian immediately knelt in front of Lu Yuanshan and kowtowed heavily. I won't disappoint you. I won't let you down, Master. Yes. Lu Yuanshan nodded with a smile. You may rise. Dao Xian stood up. You are now the future chief of Mao Mountain. In that case, I'll teach you the first golden talisman of the Mao Mountain's chief's golden talisman technique, Lu Yuanshan said to Dao Xian. Thank you, Master. Dao Xian's face lit up when he heard that Lu Yuanshan was going to teach him the Mao Mountain's chief's golden talisman technique. The Mao Mountain's golden talisman technique was one of the Mao Mountain's secret techniques. Ordinary Mao Mountain disciples used yellow talismans, but the chief used golden talismans. It was said that the golden talisman technique was divided into 9 parts. It was full of magic power and was shockingly powerful. Only the chief of each generation could learn it. Dao Xian did not expect Lu Yuanshan to teach him the technique today. Whoosh! Lu Yuanshan formed a sword with his hand and placed it in front of his chest. He closed his eyes and focused. Lu Yuanshan's sword instantly shone with a dazzling golden light. Chapter 419. Buzz. The golden Taoist talisman glowed with golden light, and the brush moved like dragons and snakes. It's the golden talisman technique, Dao Xian exclaimed. The golden talisman technique was completely different from other talisman techniques. Other talisman techniques required the user to draw talismans on yellow paper and carry the talismans with them. The talismans could be used when needed. However, the golden talisman technique was different. It used one's will as the brush and one's qi to draw talismans. It was the highest level of talisman techniques. Whoosh! Lu Yuanshan opened his eyes and pointed his sword finger at Dao Xian across the air. The golden talisman glowed with golden light and slowly flew toward Dao Ming's chest. Whoosh! The golden Taoist talisman glowed with golden light and entered Dao Xian's body. Buzz! As the golden talisman entered Dao Xian's body. His entire body was instantly enveloped by a layer of golden light. He felt a domineering heat coursing through his body, reaching his limbs and bones. I've already imprinted the first golden seal of the golden talisman technique into your body, Lu Yuanshan said to Dao Ming with a smile as he withdrew his sword finger. Cultivate diligently in the future. You'll definitely be able to understand its profundity in time. After I retire, I'll pass on the remaining 8 golden talismans to you. Thank you, Master. Dao Xian dispersed the golden light around him and bowed to Lu Yuanshan again. Since you're the future chief of Mao Shan, it's only natural that you know about the things in the secret chamber. Come, let me show you around, Lu Yuanshan said as he turned around and walked deeper into the secret chamber. Yes, Master, Dao Xian replied as he followed behind Lu Yuanshan. In the blink of an eye, the two of them arrived at the door of the secret chamber where the 8 corpse kings usually resided. This is where Mao Mountain hides the corpses, Lu Yuanshan said to Dao Xian as he stopped in front of the door. Dao Xian widened his eyes and looked into the stone chamber curiously. At this moment, the stone chamber was filled with rubble. It was a mess, and the air was filled with the smell of burnt talismans. 7 corpse kings of different forms were either lying or standing in the stone chamber. They were motionless, next to the 7 corpse kings with a huge bronze coffin. Master, could it be that? Dao Xian said as he looked at the bronze coffin whose lid had been severely deformed. That's right. The Savage Corpse King is inside, Lu Yuanshan said as he walked towards the copper coffin. Just now, it was him who was not obedient, so I suppressed him again. Dao Xian nodded and followed closely behind. The two of them stopped in front of the copper coffin. Dao Xian looked at the huge copper coffin in front of him and said with a frown, "What a heavy qi." He had heard about the savage zombie king's power from the Maoshan elders, but he did not expect the zombie king to still have such a strong, murderous aura after being imprisoned in the bronze coffin for hundreds of years. This savage corpse king was indeed powerful. Dao Xian thought to himself, I brought what you want. Lu Yuanshan's lips curled as he spoke to the copper coffin. What I want? Dao Xian did not understand what Lu Yuanshan meant. He turned to look at Lu Yuanshan with a confused expression. Good luck with your appetite, Lu Yuanshan said coldly as he turned around and walked out of the stone room with his hands behind his back. Master, you are. Dao Xian, who was standing in place, did not understand why Lu Yuanshan was acting so strangely at this moment. Just as Dao Xian was puzzled, a low growl suddenly came from the copper coffin behind him. The growl shocked Dao Xian, who was still in the dark, to the point that his soul flew out of his body and scattered into the 9 heavens. He quickly turned around and instinctively retreated 30 feet away. Boom! There was a loud bang, and dust flew everywhere. The huge copper coffin lid instantly fell to the ground. Savage! Zombie! Zombie King! Dao Xian shouted when he saw the savage corpse king covered in black scales and with a ferocious face. He did not expect the savage corpse king, who had been imprisoned in the copper coffin, to be able to break out of the coffin so easily. Master, the zombie king has broken out of the coffin. Dao Xian quickly turned around and ran toward the door as he shouted loudly. However, it was too late to escape now. The moment Dao Xian turned around, the savage corpse king in the bronze coffin raised one of its arms. Its 5 fingers formed a claw and sucked at Dao Xian, who was about to escape from the stone chamber, from a distance. A strong gust of wind blew. Dao Xian, who had already escaped to the door, felt an overbearing suction force pulling his body toward the copper coffin behind him. In a moment of desperation, Dao Xian lowered his body and closed his qi. He then performed the Taoist 1,000-kilogram fall and pressed his body firmly to the ground. Although the 1,000-kilogram fall could be performed by ordinary martial arts experts, the real 1,000-kilogram fall came from Taoism. The 1,000-kilogram fall that the martial arts experts in the Jianghu practiced was just a superficial version. The real 1,000-kilogram fall not only required the cultivation of the qi circulation method, but also a special spell that was secretly passed down in Taoism. Once performed, the force of the 1,000-kilogram fall could reach up to 500 kilograms. Bang! As Dao Xian performed the 1,000-kilogram fall, his feet instantly stomped on the limestone floor, creating a 3-inch deep stone pit. However, Dao Xian was wrong. Although the 1,000-kilogram fall's force was 500 kilograms, it was negligible to the savage corpse king, who had been cultivating for thousands of years. Chapter 420. Master, save me! Dao Xian shouted as he resisted the suction force of the savage corpse king. At this critical moment, he thought that Lu Yuanshan could help him. However, Lu Yuanshan didn't appear in front of him as he had expected. In that instant, Dao Xian understood the true meaning of Lu Yuanshan's words. I brought you the person, good luck with your appetite. Lu Yuanshan wanted to give him to the savage corpse king as food. The glossy black nails, the frightening, baleful energy, the turbid black eyes, all of this proved one thing. Lu Yuanshan and this savage corpse king were already in cahoots with each other, colluding with each other. Dao Xian, on the other hand, had become the victim of the two by chance. Lu Yuanshan had taught him the golden talisman to dispel Dao Xian's doubts and lead him to this place. What a vicious and venomous heart. What a despicable method. Dao Xian had served him conscientiously for 15 years, but he didn't expect that he would end up like this. Lu Yuanshan, you bastard! Dao Xian, who was sliding toward the bronze coffin, shouted, I won't let you go even if I become a ghost. At this moment, he was less than 10 feet away from the bronze coffin. Dao Xian, who had made up his mind to die, slowly turned around and faced the bronze coffin with a resolute expression. He formed a seal with one hand and waved it at the ferocious savage corpse king in the bronze coffin. Swish! 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 Over 100 yellow Dao talismans gushed out from his sword fingers, forming a continuous golden line that shot straight towards the savage corpse king inside the copper coffin. Even if he died, he would let the savage corpse king know how powerful he was. Bang! 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 When the hundreds of yellow talismans were less than a foot away from the savage corpse king, they instantly exploded and turned into ashes. Dao Xian shouted angrily as he shot all the talismans he had at the savage corpse king. In the blink of an eye, he was less than 3 feet away from the bronze coffin. What was worse was that he had used up all the yellow talismans he had. I'll fight you to the death today. As Dao Ming spoke, he bit his middle finger and quickly drew a blood-red Tai Chi diagram on his palm. He then released the 1,000-pound fall and exerted force with his feet. Borrowing the suction force of the savage corpse king, he charged directly at the savage corpse king. The blood of the middle finger was the most yang substance in the human body. As a cultivator, the yang qi in the blood of the middle finger was even more abundant. The Taiji diagram he drew on his hand with this blood was extremely powerful. If an ordinary evil creature touched it, it would instantly lose all of its magic power and reveal its true form. Even if it didn't die, its vitality would be greatly damaged. However, this savage corpse king was not an ordinary evil being. The Yang blood Taiji diagram could be said to be like scratching an itch through a boot to him. Pa! Blood splattered everywhere, and pieces of flesh flew everywhere. The moment Dao Xian's palm touched the giant palm of the savage corpse king, it instantly shattered. The savage corpse king in the copper coffin had not been nourished by fresh blood for hundreds of years. Now that it saw human blood, its bloodthirsty instincts were instantly aroused. The savage zombie king roared and grabbed the severely injured Dao Xian with his scaly hands, dragging him in front of him. Bang! The giant copper coffin's lid closed automatically. Dao Ming's heart-wrenching scream came from within the copper coffin. A fresh life withered in an instant. Outside the secret chamber, Lu Yuanshan sat on a futon and was leisurely eating the tea and snacks that Dao Ming brought for him. He turned a deaf ear to the screams that entered his ears. Dao Xian's death was not part of his plan. Originally, he was still thinking about where to find a living person to feed the Savage Corpse King. He did not expect Dao Xian to come to him by accident. Actually, he should not have died, but he saw something that he should not have seen. His black fingernails, black eyes, and Inchi were all seen by Dao Xian. Although he casually used the excuse that he was affected by the corpse chi to brush it off, paper could not wrap fire. Once this matter was spread out, the truth would be revealed sooner or later. In for a penny, in for a pound. Instead of causing endless trouble in the future, it was better to kill Dao Xian. Lu Yuanshan used the position of the future chief of Maoshan Mountain as bait to lure Dao Xian to the copper coffin. Then he sent this unlucky guy to the Savage Corpse King as food. A great man must be ruthless. Lu Yuanshan did not care about Dao Xian's death at all. I would rather betray the world than have the world betray me. Cao Cao's famous saying was a true portrayal of Lu Yuanshan. After half an hour, Lu Yuanshan, who had eaten his fill, stood up from the futon and slowly walked toward the secret chamber that hid the corpse. When he arrived at the door of the secret chamber, Lu Yuanshan frowned slightly. The reason was simple. He did not sense the existence of Dao Xian's soul at all. Normally, the soul of a person who died would linger in the place of death, either to seek revenge or to find substitute. Dao Xian had died less than an hour ago. Logically speaking, his soul should be in this stone chamber, but Lu Yuanshan did not find any trace of it. Chapter 421. He calmed himself down and secretly used the soul-searching technique to search carefully. Dao Xian was a cultivator when he was alive. The soul of a cultivator was much stronger than the soul of an ordinary person. Perhaps he had already left this place. However, even if Dao Xian's soul had left, it would not escape Lu Yuanshan's soul-searching technique. After a careful search, Lu Yuanshan frowned. He carefully searched the area within a radius of dozens of miles, but Dao Xian's soul was still nowhere to be found. How could it be? Lu Yuanshan was shocked. His soul-searching technique had reached perfection. Even if Dao Xian was a cultivator when he was alive, it was impossible for him to escape his eyes. What was going on? Lu Yuanshan was puzzled. Suddenly, Lu Yuanshan's mind flashed. There was only one possibility for this phenomenon. Dao Xian's soul had been devoured by the Savage Corpse King. Thinking of this, Lu Yuanshan looked up at the bronze coffin. This Savage Corpse King was indeed powerful. It could even devour a human soul. Lu Yuanshan was shocked. At this time, the lid of the bronze coffin was tightly shut. There was no movement from inside. How is it? My disciple tastes good, right? Lu Yuanshan stood with his hands behind his back and asked. The taste of a cultivator is indeed not bad. It's much better than those wild villagers. A deep male voice came from inside the bronze coffin. This scene shocked Lu Yuanshan so much that his pupils shrank instantly. He did not expect the Savage Corpse King to be able to speak human language at this time. After being shocked, Lu Yuanshan suddenly understood the mystery of this place. Unlike the other 7 corpse kings in the stone room, this Savage Corpse King was gifted. It had already gained intelligence and had cultivated for thousands of years. It could not be underestimated. In addition, this Savage Corpse King had devoured the soul of a cultivator. Naturally, it could understand the language of the soul it had devoured. It was not surprising that it could speak human language. Since you are full, come out and meet me. Lu Yuanshan smiled and said to the bronze coffin, boom. After Lu Yuanshan said this, the huge bronze coffin lid opened and fell to the ground, stirring up a cloud of dust. Patter! A dried corpse fell out of the bronze coffin. The dried corpse was dressed in an apricot yellow Taoist robe. Its entire body was shriveled up, and only one arm was left. It looked like a piece of cured meat. The eldest disciple of the Maoshan sect, who had been a profound cultivator a moment ago, had now turned into a shriveled corpse with a gruesome face and eyes wide open. Inside the copper coffin, black gas filled the air and nothing could be seen. You sucked it clean, Lu Yuanshan said expressionlessly as he looked at Dao Xian's shriveled body. It's been a few hundred years. I'm very hungry. Following the sound of marriage, a tall man slowly walked out of the copper coffin that was filled with black gas. This person was 9 feet tall and was completely naked. His bronze-colored muscles were like steel and iron. His pair of bright eagle eyes shone brightly. He had an imposing appearance and the demeanor of a king. What a savage corpse king! After seeing this person, Lu Yuanshan couldn't help but exclaim in his heart. As expected of the overlord of this uncivilized land, his reputation was well-deserved. "Is this your true appearance?" Lu Yuanshan asked. The tall, naked man smiled. "My scales are too eye-catching. I look better like this." As the savage corpse king spoke, he raised his arm and examined it carefully. He seemed to be very satisfied with his current appearance. After hearing this, Lu Yuanshan understood. After the savage corpse king had absorbed Dao Xian's pure blood, his cultivation had recovered, and he could change his appearance freely. "You're right. You do look much better now." Lu Yuanshan smiled. "In this case, I can take you out to meet people." As Lu Yuanshan spoke, he flicked his sleeve lightly. Whoosh! The shriveled corpse on the ground instantly flew upside down and into the copper coffin. Bang! The deformed copper coffin lid once again heavily covered the copper coffin. "Take me out to meet people?" The savage corpse king looked at Lu Yuanshan with a pair of cold eagle eyes. "Your identity from now on is my follower," Lu Yuanshan said with a smile. "You can only listen to my orders, understand?" "Oh, is that so?" The savage corpse king sneered as he lowered his head and fiddled with his nails with one hand. "What? You want to go back on your word?" Lu Yuanshan raised his eyebrows and said coldly, "What do you think?" The savage corpse king blew on his fingers and then looked at Lu Yuanshan with a smile. At this time, he had already obtained Dao Xian's soul yang blood. His cultivation was no longer the same as before. What he needed to do now was to take back his corpse core. "Looks like you refuse a toast only to drink a forfeit." Lu Yuanshan looked at the savage corpse king with a smile. "Return my corpse core to me, and I'll spare your life." The savage corpse king smiled and said to Lu Yuanshan, "Oh, you're so confident?" Lu Yuanshan smiled. "What? You don't believe me?" The savage corpse king asked with a smile. Chapter 422. "Oh," the savage corpse king smiled. "Are you serious? I'm the leader of a sect. I'm a man of my word." Lu Yuanshan smiled, but what?" the savage corpse king asked. "If you lose, you have to be my servant, subject to my orders, and not disobey. What do you think?" "Deal." The savage corpse king seemed to be confident of winning. It might take some effort to defeat Lu Yuanshan, but it was a piece of cake to meet Lu Yuanshan. "How can I trust you?" Lu Yuanshan smiled. "What if you go back on your words? I promise you as the king of Minna country. If I lose, I will be at your command." The savage corpse king said solemnly. "Good." Lu Yuanshan said, "Deal." After that, Lu Yuanshan did not say anything else and stood with his hands behind his back. When he looked at the savage corpse king again, he narrowed his eyes and killing intent appeared. Buzz. The savage corpse king's body suddenly emitted a black light, like a black flame soaring into the sky. Crack! A crisp sound rang out. The bluestone floor under the savage corpse king's feet and the stone wall above his head instantly cracked open. Lu Yuanshan smiled calmly, as if nothing had happened. At this moment, the distance between the two was less than 30 feet. Whoosh! The eyes of the savage corpse king, which was covered in black flames, suddenly widened. Killing intent appeared in its eyes as it prepared to attack. Buzz! Just as the savage corpse king was about to kill Lu Yuanshan made his move. He stretched out his right hand and clasped his middle finger and ring finger with his thumb, making a Maoshan handprint in front of his chest. Buzz! Once Lu Yuanshan made the handprint, the savage corpse king's chest suddenly emitted a bright golden light. The golden light radiated in all directions, dazzling the eyes. Whoosh! As the golden light shone out of the savage corpse king's body, The black flame surrounding it instantly disappeared. What is going on? This scene made the savage corpse king who was ready to attack frown. What shocked him the most was that he found that he could not move his feet at all. He tried to lift his legs, trying to break free from the force that was suppressing him. However, no matter how hard he tried, his legs were rooted to the ground and could not move at all. The savage corpse king was shocked. One had to know that he had been cultivating for 1,000 years and was born with divine strength. A casual move of his was equivalent to 1,000 gene of strength. If he used his full strength, his strength could reach tens of thousands of gene. But even with such great strength, he couldn't move his 2 legs. When Lu Yuanshan saw that the savage corpse king was unable to move, the corners of his mouth curled up, revealing a pleased expression. "What did you do to me?" Savage corpse king frowned and asked Lu Yuanshan. "What do you think?" Lu Yuanshan imitated the tone of the savage corpse king and laughed. Could it be? Savage corpse king suddenly remembered something. You did something to your disciple. Ha ha ha. Lu Yuanshan laughed out loud. "You are very smart. What did you do?" Savage corpse king stared at Lu Yuanshan with his pair of eagle eyes and asked, "Do you think I won't have a backup plan?" "What a joke." Lu Yuanshan laughed. "Before I gave Dao Xian to you, I had already injected the first Maoshan golden talisman into his body. After the golden talisman enters the body, it will merge with the blood vessels in the body. Since you have sucked his yang blood, you will naturally swallow the golden talisman into your stomach. Controlling the golden talisman is as easy as flipping my hand." Shua. As Lu Yuanshan spoke, he changed his hand seals again. Wang. As Lu Yuanshan changed his hand seals, the golden light on the savage corpse king's chest suddenly exploded. Ugh! Savage corpse king let out a painful groan. He lowered his body and supported himself with one arm on the ground. His handsome face was filled with pain. Shua. Lu Yuanshan slowly raised his hand seals. Wang. The savage corpse king who was supporting himself with one arm was instantly lifted up by a huge force and floated off the ground. Ugh! Ugh! Savage corpse king was in so much pain that he could no longer speak. Shua. Lu Yuanshan's eyes suddenly opened wide. His golden robe fluttered without any wind, and his hair and beard flew up into the sky. Shua. Savage corpse king's huge body instantly flew backward. Boom! A loud sound rang out, and the stone shattered. Savage corpse king crashed heavily into the 3 feet thick stone wall behind him, and then fell heavily onto the ground. On the stone wall, a huge human shape could be seen. "How is it? Are you convinced now?" Lu Yuanshan looked at Savage corpse king with a cold smile on his face and said coldly, I admit defeat." Savage corpse king, who was covered in golden light, struggled to get up from the ground. He propped himself up and gasped for breath. He had never thought that the man in front of him would be so despicable. He had injected the golden talisman into the food that was given to him to control him. Chapter 423. This way, no matter how strong he was, as long as the golden talisman remained in his body, he would be at the mercy of this person. Losing half of his corpse core and his body being controlled by the golden talisman was a great humiliation to him as a king. However, he had no other choice. The only thing he could do now was to listen to this person's words and plan for the long term. Seeing that the savage corpse king had completely admitted defeat, Lu Yuanshan withdrew his hand. The golden light on the savage corpse king's body gradually faded away as Lu Yuanshan withdrew his hand. The power that was suppressing the savage corpse king instantly disappeared. Don't you know how to transform? In a moment, you will become Dao Xian. Do you understand? Lu Yuanshan said to the savage corpse king that was slowly standing up. Yes. The savage corpse king nodded. When one was under someone else's roof, one had no choice but to lower one's head. Lu Yuanshan's meaning was very clear. From now on, he would follow Lu Yuanshan with the identity of Mao Mountain's eldest disciple, Dao Xian. Tidy up this place and restore the copper coffin to its original state. Lu Yuanshan said with a smile. There is a Taoist robe in the stone room next door. Quickly change into it. Don't let others see through you, my good disciple. After saying that, Lu Yuanshan turned around with a smile and walked toward the door of the secret room. As he turned around, Lu Yuanshan activated a mountain spell and hid the power of the corpse core in his body. Whoosh! His 10 black nails instantly returned to their original state. His dark eyes also became clear and bright again. Everything seemed to have returned to normal. Rumble. The door of the secret room slowly opened. Lu Yuanshan smiled and walked out of the secret room with his hands behind his back. With the 1,000-year corpse core in his body and the 1,000-year corpse king submission, he was in an extremely good mood. In the secret room, a burst of black smoke rose from the tall, savage corpse king's body. After a short moment, Dao Xian, who was completely naked, walked out slowly from the black smoke. On the warship on the coast of the East Sea, night, the huge cabin was brightly lit. 13 peerless experts were divided into 2 rows and knelt on prayer mats. There was a wooden table in front of each of them. All kinds of exquisite food and fragrant wine were placed on the wooden table. Among the experts, all of them had a smile on their faces. It seemed that they had done a good job this time's mission. There were only 2 exceptions. Akatsuki, who was wearing a red robe and a veil covering her face, and Yi Fan, who was wearing a white robe and had an expressionless face. Akatsuki sat diagonally across from Yi Fan. From time to time, she would look at Yi Fan with her beautiful eyes. Yi Fan, on the other hand, was drinking tea by himself. In his mind, he was thinking hard about how he could obtain the power of an immortal and break the barrier of the 9 cauldrons. Baihu curled up his arms and licked Yi Fan's hand from time to time. Matsumoto Takeyoshi, who was sitting in the main seat, had a smile on his face. He seemed to be in a very good mood. Everyone has completed the mission well this time. I am very pleased. Matsumoto Takeyoshi looked around at the experts and said in a clear voice, Today, I have prepared a small banquet to welcome everyone. The experts on the futons bowed and nodded to Matsumoto Takeyoshi to show their respect. I, Matsumoto Takeyoshi, have always been fair in my rewards and punishments. Since everyone has returned in triumph this time, I will naturally reward you according to your contributions, Matsumoto Takeyoshi continued. However, before I reward you according to your contributions, I would like to introduce an esteemed guest to you. I believe everyone has heard of this esteemed guest, but you have never seen his face before. Matsumoto Takeyoshi smiled and kept them in suspense. The moment he said that, the experts immediately frowned. His name was like thunder in their ears, but they had never seen him before. The experts looked at each other and were puzzled. They did not know which expert Matsumoto Takeyoshi was talking about. They were all famous top-notch experts in Japan. To them, an expert who was like thunder in their ears, but they had never seen him before. Apart from the seniors of the previous generation who lived in seclusion, there was almost no one else. May I know which senior expert Mr. Matsumoto is talking about? Fujita, who was dressed in a loose kimono, asked Matsumoto Takeyoshi. Mr. Fujita's guess is correct. This expert is indeed a senior, Matsumoto Takeyoshi said with a smile. He is also a senior who has never been seen before in Japan. The words never been seen before made the experts frown. For Matsumoto Takeyoshi to use such words, he must be an extraordinary expert. Mr. Matsumoto, please don't keep us in suspense, the old Kamehameha said to Matsumoto Takeyoshi with a smile. Please introduce us to him. Kamehameha's words made all the experts nod in agreement. Speaking of seniors, Kamehameha could definitely be considered as an original figure in Japan. If he could not guess who it was, the other experts would naturally not be able to guess. Since Mr. Kamehameha has said so, I won't keep you in suspense. Matsumoto Takeyoshi stood up from his seat with a smile and slowly walked toward the cabin door. Seeing Matsumoto Takeyoshi stand up, the experts did not dare to delay and immediately stood up as well. The expressionless Yi Fan also stood up from his seat with Baihu in his arms. Although he did not want to, he still had to perform the basic etiquette. Chapter 424. This action seemed simple, but it shocked all the experts. What kind of status did Matsumoto Takeyoshi have? He actually lowered himself to open the door. Who on earth was this expert? All the experts widened their eyes, wanting to see who could make Matsumoto Takeyoshi so respectful. Voila! The cabin door slowly opened. An old man with white hair and ordinary clothes stood at the door. This old man looked to be in his 60s. He had a medium build and a thin face. His white hair was neatly combed back, and his eyes shone brightly. He wore a Chinese-style coarse cloth robe and cloth shoes. At first glance, he looked no different from an ordinary person of the great Ming dynasty. Behind the old man stood two people, one on his left and one on his right. The man on the left was extremely tall, almost twice the height of an ordinary person. He wore a navy blue samurai suit and had a 6-foot-long saber at his waist. He had cold eyes, an aquiline nose, and a sharp gaze. His skin was bronze, and his muscles were well developed. The two scars on his face made people feel fear. The man standing on the right of the old man was even weirder. He had a medium build and wore a black bronze grimace mask. He carried a black quiver of longbow on his back and held a black saber in his hand. His entire body was covered from head to toe in black armor, and even his hands and feet were wearing steel gloves and boots. The experts could tell for where the three of them were standing that the senior expert Matsumoto Takeyoshi was referring to was this old man. Who is he? All the experts looked at the old man in front of them and wondered. Although this old man looked hale and hearty, he didn't have the slightest bit of spiritual power. He was just an ordinary old man. However, such an ordinary old man could be treated so politely by Matsumoto Takeyoshi. All the experts were puzzled. Yifan was also confused. He didn't know what Matsumoto Takeyoshi was planning. Mr. Matsumoto, the tall man standing behind the old man, said as he and the other expert in armor bowed to Matsumoto Takeyoshi. Matsumoto Takeyoshi waved his hand in response. Matsumoto greets the elder, Matsumoto Takeyoshi said as he bowed to the old man. Mr. Matsumoto, you're too kind. When the old man saw that Matsumoto Takeyoshi had condescended to salute him, he hurriedly bowed to Matsumoto Takeyoshi in fear and trepidation. This old man is just a lowly commoner. How can I accept such a great salute from you? Senior, there's no need to be so restrained. Please take a seat inside. Matsumoto Takeyoshi said as he helped the old man into the cabin. The two experts behind the old man followed closely behind. Everyone, this senior is known as the genius knife smith in Japan, the knife emperor, Mr. Kazukage Sato. Matsumoto Takeyoshi announced to the experts. Saber Emperor Isshin Sato. Aside from Yifan, all the experts present instantly narrowed their eyes when they heard this name. They were all stunned. This ordinary-looking old man was actually the Saber Emperor Isshin Sato. In Japan, the name Isshin Sato was already a godlike existence. Since ancient times, Japanese men's love for knives had almost surpassed their love for women. Famous knifesmiths had an extremely high status in Japan, not to mention the Saber Emperor Isshin Sato, who was known as the genius knifesmith. Whoosh! All the experts bowed to the old man in unison. Even a usually taciturn and unruly white-clothed man lowered his head to pay respects to this person. They bowed to Matsumoto Takeyoshi because of Matsumoto Takeyoshi's status. But bowing to Isshin Sato was completely from the bottom of their hearts. Among the crowd, there was only one person who did not bow to the old man, Yifan. Before the incident, Fujiwara no Chiko had told him about this Japanese knife smithing expert. It was said that this person's knife smithing skills were extremely high. Not only were the knives he forged extremely sharp, but each of them was also very unique and had astonishing power. They were completely different from the knives forged by ordinary knifesmiths. It was said that Isshin Sato had forged 3 knives, and each of them could be called a peerless divine weapon. These 3 knives were Flower Burial, Green Leaf, and Sky Splitter. Flower Burial was 5 feet long. It was forged by Isshin Sato when he was 18 years old. The body of a knife was covered with blood-red cherry blossom patterns. It was extremely sharp and abnormally beautiful. What was even more unbelievable was that every time the bayonet was stained with human blood, the cherry blossom patterns on the blade would become even more enchanting and eye-catching, and the blade would also become sharper than before. Greenleaf was the knife used by the green-clothed man. It was personally forged by Ishin Sato in 3 years when he was 35 years old. This knife was 3.5 feet long, and it was surrounded by a cold green light. Unlike Flower Burial, this knife had the pattern of a withered tree engraved on it. It was said that if the knife's power was unleashed to the extreme, the withered tree would be covered with green leaves, and it would be full of vitality. This green leaf was different from Flower Burial. Although this knife was extremely sharp, it was not stained with blood. It was known as the purest knife. Sky Splitter was forged by Ishin Sato when he was 60 years old. This knife was 4.5 feet long. From a hilt to the blade, it was smooth and white, and there were no patterns on it. Only the hilt was inlaid with a golden bell. It was said that every time this knife fought with someone, the golden bell on the hilt would let out a crisp sound that shook one's soul. After the opponent heard the sound of the bell, they would instantly become dizzy and deaf, and would not be able to resist at all. Those who were killed by Sky Splitter all had one thing in common, and that was a strange smile on their faces after they died. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.